he picked the wrong family, and not scared of a conflict, and we're not scared. We're not running. We're coming at him.
Hey guys, it's Franky. Welcome to the Think Tank. So it looks like we're not too far off from Letecia Stauch's trial, heading over to the defense. And I don't know how many they're actually going to have as far as witnesses. I don't imagine it's going to compare to the prosecution. So we're looking at that in about 10 minutes. I hope everybody had a good weekend. The tourists are starting to hit us up here, so I'm not going too far, except maybe the bush. Hey, Lizzie. So I don't know if I told you guys this. Lizzie, she knows she gets a treat if she brings me something, say a piece of paper or whatever that's on the floor. She knows that she'll get a treat if she brings me that. So now she's in the habit of, if there's nothing on the floor, which is something I aim for, well, what she'll do is she'll go over and she'll put her head in the garbage bucket and she'll pull out a small piece of paper to bring it to me. Oh my word. There you go. There you go. Good girl. Good girls. So yeah, I think it's just about time for the defense. I don't imagine they're going to have a lot based on what we've been seeing. She's been doing the cousin it look for a couple of weeks now. She really doesn't seem like she's been encouraging her lawyers to do a whole hell of a lot. So I don't know. Good morning, Dandy. Hope you had a good weekend, friend. I'm not streaming this afternoon. I got to go to the dentist again, but I thought it would be interesting because we're tail ending it here as far as the prosecution goes. I'm hoping to get a few more tidbits out of there. I enjoy doing the streaming, but it's honestly not the best thing for my fibro. So I'm just going to try and, with most of these cases, try for highlights, stream when I think that there's going to be some good stuff coming. And otherwise, try and move around a little bit more. It's, not great for, I don't imagine it's great for anyone with Arthur either. But enough with that. So Brian Kohlberger, stuff's moving as far as that case goes. Looks like Bethany is going to do like a video deposition with the defense. I'm going to pop over here because I'm curious. Hopefully we have a little bit easier time hooking on to a channel. Oh my word. So let's see here. We've got Letecia, Idaho, maybe a motion to dismiss? Question mark? That's from Harsh Reality. I haven't really heard of that, but what? I don't know. It looks like I'm Summer Wells. Maybe not a lot happening, but it looks like the parents are back jumping onto lives. And let's see what else we've got here. 6 minutes ago, Texas shooting manhunt continues for gunman. They are christening a dog. Okay. And what else have we got here? Do you think Laina's going to make an appearance? I'm hearing things where they're saying that Letecia wanted to be the next Kardashians. That's just stuff I've heard. Oh my word. 5 people at the hands of this guy in, I can never say this. Mexi's good at it, of course. San Jacinto? Shoot, I was trying. Jacinto. I think that's the fellow that got drunk and went over to his neighbor's house when they were complaining about the noise and let loose. Mexi! Brandy apparently gave some advice to Don Wells. I seen that. Yeah, wasn't that interesting? She, Brandy's got a good heart. I honestly believe that. I feel so bad for that family. It's heartbreaking. So yeah, again, I've got the dentist this afternoon, so I will not be streaming. Maybe. I mean, the only thing would be maybe if some kind of closing arguments were to come, or if it's super interesting when I get back, I'll pop on if it's not too late. I'm not expecting work being done today, so there's that. Did you have a good weekend, Mexi? Hey, Dandy, we were talking about the hot springs. Welcome back to Monday. Hubby set us up, so we're gonna go spend a weekend in a cabin and hang out at the hot springs. Looking forward to it. Oh my God, do you guys ever start cutting your hair and then it just starts to slowly get out of control? It's supposed to be just bangs. Like seriously? Oh my God, ladies. Do you know what? That's a good question, Dandy. I don't know really what's happening with that. It might have something to do with the fact that he did interview the Wells, and I don't think the Wells, excuse me? Get out of there, girls. I don't think the Wells were really appreciative of what Chris had to say. Well, hello, Bruja. Good morning. Yeah, I don't think that really they were too happy with what Chris Medina had to say, but that's as far as I know. But for a while there, they weren't really making it easy for people to stand behind them, unfortunately. Mexi, I'm looking for a feed for this. I'm hoping that the one that we had the other morning, I can grab onto it, but nothing yet. Okay. Yeah, Letecia got reprimanded the other day as well because, of course, she burst out a great big no in the middle of one of the witnesses speaking. She just kind of does her own thing. I think she should have caught shit for that myself, but I don't know. They chose not to, maybe because it's nearing the end of the case, but at the same time, I cannot see how that was a good idea to let her get off with anything. Can grab on here.
There's a 7th page, but it only has her signature on it. But my position would be, unless you can persuade me otherwise, she's going to be limited to exactly and precisely what she's disclosed in her report. So if there was other evidence or something else that got disclosed, or...
No, I mean, it was more of just kind of a refamiliarizing
Okay. Okay, and I would also be inclined to say you need to get that report to prosecution before she testifies. In addition, depending on what that reflects, I may or may not require that before she testifies, the prosecution has an opportunity to meet with her and talk to her about, I don't know if there's something new that's going to come up or not, but, and then depending on what it is, I'll have to deal with it then, but this is far too late at this point for new opinions, so let's see where we are. Okay. Okay. All right.
Well, I understand that, but they had 3 hours, Your Honor. This was just a 30-minute introduction. So something was discussed within that 3 hours. And I need to be able to have the ability to cross-examine her as to why did she feel the need to meet with her for another 3 hours if she's already issued her opinion and issued her report. So I'm at a loss because I don't know what took place for a 3-hour interview. And obviously it wasn't video recorded, which is, if she's doing any sort of evaluation, that should have been video recorded.
Well, I've given both sides a way to proceed forward. I understand that neither side probably likes it, but essentially what we're dealing with here is a 3-hour meeting yesterday. If it is not, if she's changed her opinions and that change is not permitted to be presented to the jury because of late disclosure, it's irrelevant. If she had a 3-hour meeting with the defendant and I prohibit that testimony because it was not disclosed in a timely fashion as it was supposed to, it's irrelevant. If she had a 3-hour meeting with the defendant and it doesn't change any of her opinions, and she's limited to the opinions that she disclosed, it's also irrelevant. So I'm not sure where.
I can explain where I'm coming from.
Okay.
It would be the people's position if she's already issued a report and rendered opinions. Why did she feel the need to meet with her again for 3 hours? And so it goes to the weight and credibility of her prior opinions.
Well, that's you opening up the door. I want to know why it is that you had to have this meeting instead of just saying this is what your opinion was as you issued it, back on March 16th. And she stuck with that and you know what it is. What you want to do is inquire into something that you don't know what the answers are and you're concerned that the answers are going to be really bad, and you want to know about that ahead of time. And I've already provided the response. Okay. So we have what we have. I can't change it.
A record, Your Honor,
okay.
Why I'm bringing it up.
No, I understand, but none of us here can change the facts. They are what they are. I just have to try and deal with them and craft a solution on the fly. So so she's probably not going to be on the stand before noon, right?
I don't think so. I've heard it was scheduled for 1:30.
Okay. So maybe we have the jury come back a little bit later so that we've got about 15 minutes before, say like 1:45. We all come back at 1:30 and say, what's up? What happened?
I would prefer if we could do it 2 o'clock and then I can meet with her.
Well,
at either 1 or 1:30 or something like that, because
I think
we
we're,
can do this in 15 minutes.
if I could get a word in just for a second, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I think Mr. Clark is going to be on the stand for longer than we anticipate anyway.
Okay.
And so I think we'll probably be closer to the end of the day anyway. Maybe we could just break early and discuss it.
We can do
time.
that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Can you get the can you get the summation to them by 1:30?
I can.
Okay, let's do that. All right. So aside from that, is there anything else that we need to address? Prosecution?
No, Judge.
Defense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring the jury in. No, no, they're coming in. All rise for the jury, please. I'll be seated. Court will recall 20 CR 1358, People versus Letecia Stauch. Record should reflect the jury has returned to the courtroom. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You'll notice that now that it's summer, we do have the heat working, so it's a whole lot better. But let me start with the question that I've asked every other day, and that is, has anything occurred since we were last together that causes any of you to believe you could not continue to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this case? If so, please raise your hand. No response. All right. Prosecution, call your next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would call Kevin Clark.
Mr. Clark, if you would.
I've got my audio cranked. The screen is black?
You swear affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Okay.
Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand.
I can't do anything about the audio. I am so sorry. Sometimes if you put on headphones, it helps. Okay. Okay.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, I'm well.
So you've obviously testified a couple of previous times. Just a reminder that you're still under the same oath that the court swore you to at the beginning. Just to refresh everyone's memory, remind everybody your name and who you work for.
Good morning, my name is Kevin Clark, C-L-A-R-K, and I'm the Director of Crime Strategies and Intelligence for the 4th Judicial District Attorney's Office.
How long have you been in that role?
Just over 2 years.
What kind of training and experience do you bring to allow you to be in that position?
So I've been a intelligence analyst for 20 years now. I got my start active duty Air Force. I was an intelligence analyst specializing in signals intelligence analysis. I did 9 years of active duty, and during that time I received beginner and intermediate and advanced signals intelligence analysis training. After we got here to Colorado, we decided to make it our home, so I got out and I was a defense contractor for a little over a year. At first for a large company, Lockheed Martin, and then second for a smaller company on Team Linquist. I then gained employment with the Colorado Springs Police Department as a senior criminal intelligence analyst. And I did that for about 7.5 years. And then I've been with the district attorney's office for the last 2 years. So to culminate 20 years very briefly, during that time I've earned an Associates of Applied Science degree in Communication Applications Technology. I earned a bachelor's degree in Homeland Security, and then on to a master's degree. And then since I already had the degree, I went back using my GI Bill to earn undergrad certificates in digital forensics, cybercrime, and I'm currently working on database management. I've also attended numerous law enforcement sponsored trainings. If I can refer to my resume real quick, I can go through those briefly.
Sure, yeah.
So I've all these are at least 1 week long as I go through. I attended the Criminal Intelligence Analysis Training course in Denver, Cell Phone Data and Mapping course held by Police Technical in Denver. I'm Terrorism Liaison Officer certified by the Colorado Information Analysis Center. In 2015, I attended a course held by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for investigative strategies for child abduction cases. I've completed call detail records and mobile forensic analysis 1 and 2 held by Stauch-Time. I've completed the FBI's first responder course, which was online. I've completed level 1 and level 2 of the FBI's cellular analysis survey team courses. In 2017, I attended a training held by the DEA on detecting misleading behaviors in investigations. And then I've completed training by the National White Collar Crime Center on internet investigations and intelligence. And those are the most applicable ones.
Okay. Who were you employed by at the time that the investigation got started on Gannon Stauch's disappearance?
The Colorado Springs Police Department, where I was a senior intelligence analyst in VNI.
How did you get involved in this investigation?
It was Saturday, February 1st, and I received a phone call from then Lieutenant Mahalko, Mitch Mahalko, asking if I'd be willing to come temporary duty, TDY, to the command post for the next 30 to 60 days.
And when you say Lieutenant Mitch Mahalko, is that the same Commander Mitch Mahalko that testified for us? I can't even remember how many weeks ago now.
It was, yes.
Okay. Have you testified as a expert witness?
I have.
How many times?
So this is my 30th time testifying. Paso, Teller, Fremont County, and then subpoena testified in a couple other counties later this summer. And out of the 30, I think there's only 2 where I wasn't endorsed. One was in front of a grand jury for an organized crime case, and the other was for a social media thing I did.
So at least 28 times of expert testimony?
Yes,
Each one of those times that you named off several counties, are those Colorado counties?
they are.
All of your expert testimony, has it been in the state of Colorado?
Yes.
Okay. What disciplines have you testified as an expert in Colorado?
Call detail records analysis, cell phone analysis, cell phone location analysis, whether that's the device itself or some of the apps that are on the cell phone. And then that covers the wide range of things I do.
Okay. As it relates to your training experience and education and your application to this particular case, did you use skills as it relates to cell phone data analysis?
I did.
And then also skills as it relates to crime analysis?
I did.
At this time, Your Honor, I'd move to qualify Mr. Clark as an expert witness in cell phone data analysis and crime analysis.
Defense? Objection. Witness will be so qualified. Go ahead.
Mr. Clark, I want to start out with just some basic stuff. Did you get a chance to go out to 6627 Mandan Drive, the location where the Stauch family was living in January of 2020?
I did.
Is that location in El Paso County, Colorado?
It is.
Did you learn some biographical information about Gannon specifically?
I did.
His birth date?
Gannon was born September 29th of 2008.
How old was he on January 27th of 2020?
He was 11.
We've heard a lot of testimony over the weeks of this trial. Did you have a chance to look at the CAST report, the cellular analysis? You said all the letters for it, the FBI's CAST team, to see that route that Mr. Hoyland testified to from Colorado Springs down to Pensacola, Florida?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Do you have access to open sources like Google Maps?
I do.
Can you use Google Maps to tell the distance in miles from one location to another?
Yes.
Did you do that as it relates to the distance from 6627 Mandan Drive to the Escambia River Bridge where Gannon's remains were found?
I did.
How many miles was that?
It was 1,371 miles.
We heard some testimony when Harley Hunt was on the stands, and there was an exhibit admitted, exhibit number 205. There was some question about the maybe Nicole as it relates to the defendant's phone. Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
Does your expertise in cell phone data analysis allow you to explain that issue to the jury?
It does.
Would it help to pull that exhibit up on the TV?
Sure, it'd probably help the jury.
Okay. All right, if I could have the TV turned on, I'm going to pull up People's Exhibit number 205.
Are you doing this from the podium?
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Clark, I've got the first page of Exhibit 205 up on the screen behind you, or to your right, I guess. And you can see, let me zoom in actually a little bit on this. And we're looking at the participants section of that first page. There's 2 phone numbers there. Are you familiar with those 2 phone numbers?
I am.
The first phone number that ends in 7460, who do you know that phone number to belong to?
That belonged to the defendant while in Colorado.
And then the other phone number that ends in 3486, who do you know that phone number to belong to?
It belongs to Harley Hunt, the defendant's daughter.
So as we look at where it says maybe Nicole, there's an asterisk there. Can you tell the jury how that particular maybe Nicole is created in a phone?
So this is a iPhone function, specifically a Siri function. And so when you activate a phone, there's a place to insert a name. You name the device. And at the time of activation, this field wasn't completed. And so Siri gives a best guess as to what the name could be. The reason why you see daughter under Harley Hunt's number is because this download is from the defendant's phone. And so it's from the defendant's phone's perspective. And so all the contacts with associated numbers in the defendant's phone is how they were named and stored. And so Harley Hunt is the defendant's daughter. And so the defendant named Harley's phone number daughter in her phone. Now the maybe Nicole part is Siri just combing through trying to insert something. And that's why when if you look at the download from Harley's phone, it won't say maybe Nicole, it'll say mom. It'll have however that contact is named in the other person's phone. But all that is maybe Nicole. That's not something the defendant did. In fact, it's because the defendant did not do something when activating the phone that it's Siri's best guess as to what the phone's name could be.
So just to put a fine point on it, the defendant then didn't put the name Nicole in to name herself in her phone?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, you can turn off the screen for just a moment. Thank you. We mentioned just a moment ago that you had gone out to 6627 Mandan Drive. Did you have a chance to look at surveillance video from a neighbor's house, 6626 Mandan Drive?
I did.
First of all, let's talk about how was that surveillance video or Ring doorbell video obtained?
The homeowner provided a copy of a week's worth of video surveillance from the Ring doorbell.
Was that week's worth of video surveillance come through to see if there was anything relevant on it?
Yes,
Did you have a chance to review that footage yourself?
I did.
The footage that you reviewed, did it appear to be accurate, meaning that it's showing what's happening in the neighborhood in that general area?
It is.
Is it fair and accurate representations then?
Yes.
And then as far as timestamps, when you have a Ring doorbell or different types of doorbell cameras, is there a way for the system itself to record date and time information?
There is. If it's not on the screen itself, it's in the way the file is named. It'll be named with the day or the month, the day, the year, and then a time.
What was the specifics as it relates to this video? Was it specifically provided, or was the file name, did it include that information?
It was in the file name.
Okay. I put up there several discs, People's Exhibits 212 through 219. Do you see those?
I do.
Are these videos from that 6626 Mandan Drive doorbell video?
They are.
All fair and accurate?
They are.
At this time, I'd move for admission of 212 through 219.
Defense. Exhibits 212 through 219 will be admitted.
And permission to publish, starting with 212, Your Honor.
You may go ahead.
So we're going to play now 212 on the screen here. Before I start playing it, can you give just a quick summary of what the jury's going to see in this particular video?
So 6626 Mandan Drive. If you're standing at what was the Stauch residence, which was 6627, and you're looking at it, 6626 is going to be behind you and slightly to the left. And so this is across the street. And so what you're going to see is the defendant and Gannon return home on Monday, the 27th at 2:20 p.m. And you'll see the red truck back into the driveway.
And so just so we get oriented, there's a pointer there. Will you point out 6627 Mandan Drive?
Right here with the black Volkswagen Tiguan in the driveway.
Is that the defendant's Volkswagen Tiguan?
It is.
And then is the pickup truck also identified there?
It's right in front of the house alongside the curb at this time.
Okay, let's go ahead and play this now.
So it sounds like the state might still be doing the cross-examinations until the end of today. Did I hear that properly?
So again, for reference sake, we had previously had some video admitted of 6643 Mandan Drive. Do you remember that video?
I do.
Including a zoomed in image from basically the same time as this video, where you see a shadow come down from the passenger back seat area of that pickup truck.
That's correct.
Is that actually caught on this video?
Unfortunately, it's not.
How is this video, is it motion detected basically?
It is. It's motion activated based on the sensitivity of the Ring doorbell, how those are set up.
And so does this video cut off just before we see the persons getting out of the vehicle from that other address, 6643 Mandan Drive?
It does. The video only captures for 1 minute and 9 seconds, and we're still about 30 seconds out before the doors open, captured from the neighbor's camera, which is a completely different system.
What are these two systems? 6643, the one that has the zoomed in image, and then this one, the 6626.
So the one you just saw is a Ring doorbell, and then the one from the same side as the street as the residence 6643 is.
Do you guys think Gannon got in there
And that's why
into that truck on his own power, or do you
entire
think
event.
that Letecia
And then
basically
moving on to
helped him
PINTREST
and then placed him
213.
in that vehicle?
So before we get too far on this.
Let me know what
video,
you guys see.
The Tiguan that you had pointed
When
out
I don't
there,
think this is the
I
footage.
keep mispronouncing that word, but it's something I can't get past apparently.
Maybe it's a
The,
different angle.
The Volkswagen that was parked in the driveway, is it now in a different spot
It's now backed into the garage. Yes,
at 6627 Mandan Drive?
correct.
Okay. And what are we going to see in this particular video?
So now we're at 2:29 in the afternoon on Monday the 27th, and what you're going to see is at about the 30-second mark,
No.
you'll see what appears to be the defendant walk to the front of the garage and look out, and then go back in. It's going to be extremely difficult for you to see
Brutal.
from where you're at. I have a large monitor in my office, and it's still kind of tough at times for me to see, but right about the 30-second.
I agree with you guys.
So will you point out for the jury where they're going to see that movement?
Right here.
We're going to go ahead and play it now.
Okay, there we are. I get this better. How are you going to be able to see anything from there? Alrighty then.
Right there.
Oh, good God.
Right in the middle of that garage area.
Correct.
How many times did we look at it together the other day, Mexi? That was, I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot see a damn thing that. Blah.
Based on your knowledge of the investigation.
Alrighty
Mr.
then.
Clark, who was home at the 6627 Mandan Drive on this afternoon of January 27, 2020?
At this time, at 2:29, only the defendant and Gannon.
Where was Harley
She was at work.
and Al
I was in Oklahoma.
and Laina, the younger sister?
She was in school.
And then we're going to jump ahead now to People's Exhibit 214. What is the date of this video?
This is the next day. This is going to be Tuesday, the 28th.
Early morning hours?
Early morning. The first video is at 6:19 a.m.
And what are we going to see in this video?
You're going to see the Nissan move, start up and move a few feet on the curb. You'll see the dome light inside the Nissan turn off. You'll hear a door close right at about 30 seconds.
Sounds like maybe that truck needs to get its muffler fixed. Point out where we're looking at for the Nissan and the 6627 Mandan.
Here's the Nissan and here's the dome light right there. So you'll hear, you'll see a little bit of movement here at 27 seconds, and then you'll hear the door close and you'll see the dome light go out. There's the movement in front of the truck, into the truck. There's the dome light going off when the truck starts.
So let me just go back to the, I need to do something with that video. Sorry, Judge. So we pointed out where the Nissan Titan pickup is. There's a white vehicle in the driveway there. Whose
There
vehicle is that?
That's Harley's Volkswagen Jetta.
And then the Tiguan, is that still in the garage?
It is.
Okay. And then moving on to People's Exhibit 215, just describe what we're going to see in 215.
This is a minute later, and the Tiguan pulls out of the garage.
Just pausing it while we had a little commotion here. All right, so point out while we've got this paused, the Nissan Titan, is it still parked out in front of the 6627?
It is just pulled forward slightly, so it's right there. There's Harley's Jetta, and there's the Tiguan.
You've picked up the Tiguan pronunciation now too. That motion that we see in the entrance to the garage, can you point out where that was? And I'll just pull it back just a little bit.
Right here.
So the headlights that came on inside the garage, is that from the defendant's Tiguan?
It is.
And then the next few videos that we're going to see as it relates to that Volkswagen Tiguan, does that coincide with some cast testimony that Special Agent Hoyland gave us last week?
It does.
Generally describe what this is showing as it relates to that correlation with Special Agent Hoyland's testimony.
So the Tiguan's going to leave for 10 minutes and come back. During that 10 minutes, the telematics, the GPS collected off the Tiguan records data locations, as well as the Life 360 app that's on the defendant's phone recording GPS locations, and they're traveling together.
Okay. And is this, is there going to be a trip essentially that the Tiguan leaves 6627 Mandan, drives up to Bradley Road, and then basically returns right back to the house?
That's exactly what it does.
We're going to pull up, just so you can point that out before we watch those videos, Mr. Hoyland's report, which was Exhibit 293. Let me get that pulled up. So we're looking at page 28 of Special Agent Hoyland's report. Is this basically what you're talking about there?
Correct.
So using the pointer, just point out what we're going to see and how it correlates with this particular page of Special Agent Hoyland's report.
So what you see is you see the Tiguan depart the residence at 6:22. It begins collecting Life 360 points off of the phone. You have AT&T call detail records data, and it goes up to Bradley, and then turns around and comes right back to the house.
And so are we seeing in these next videos basically just the vehicle leaving 6627 Mandan Drive and then returning to 6627 Mandan Drive in correlation with what we see on this map?
That's correct.
Okay. We're going to go to 216 now. Give the date and time of what we're going to see on People's Exhibit 216.
So this is Tuesday morning. We're now at 6:21 in the morning
On January 28th?
on January 28th. Yes.
And for context purposes, is this basically the next morning after the defendant reported Gannon missing on the evening of January 27th?
It is.
And now we're going to move on to People's 217. What are we going to see in People's 217?
You're going to see the defendant in the Tiguan return to the residence at 6627 Mandan Drive.
Essentially after going up to Bradley and then returning back?
Right, 10 minutes has lapsed.
Is that the Tiguan backed into the driveway at 6627 Mandan Drive?
It is.
Why is the sound so horrible on these videos? Do you know that?
Wind, and it's a fairly expensive security device. It's supposed to capture, about 10 feet of someone coming up to your house. So for the long distance stuff, it's not the best.
Moving on to People's Exhibit 218. As I'm pulling that up, describe to the jury what they're going to see in 218.
The garage door will be open and you'll see movement inside the garage.
I'm going to pull that back up so you can point out exactly where you see them.
Yeah, potato footage. Good call.
I've got it paused at 1 minute and 6 seconds, and it's a 1 minute 9 second video. Point out
Like
where you
what?
see the moving inside.
Right here we get the best view.
And is it basically, does it appear that somebody's watching from inside the garage back to the Tiguan?
It does.
No. It looks like a bright light.
Just there at the very end.
She's singing,
Yes.
guys.
And then moving on to 219, as I'm pulling that up, describe to the jury what they're going to see in 219.
The Tiguan backs into the garage.
And in your reviewing surveillance, we can take the TV down. Thank you, Judge. prior intercepted calls, what date was that?
That was February 18th of 2020.
In the, can you tell?
I wonder
when you
how
look
long
at,
it was
this
froze. Oh
information, the
my
note
God.
That was created in the phone, what date that note was created?
It was created the next day, February 19th, 2020.
And then as it relates to web searches, is that the following pages after the first page of this document?
The next 3 pages, yes.
How many total pages are we talking about on this document?
4.
Okay. What are the web search dates as it relates to the note that was created, as you said, on February 19th?
It was 2 days after the note was created on February 21st of 2020.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of the information you found on the defendant's South Carolina seized phone as it relates to this fake polygraph information?
It is, it's an exact screen capture of what I see.
Okay. All right, at this time, move for admission of 692.
Defense? Exhibit 692 will be admitted. Go ahead.
And like to play it on, or push this up on the screen, Judge.
Go ahead.
And so, Mr. Clark, I've got the first page, page 1 of 4 of People's Exhibit 692 on the screen. Would it be easier for me to zoom in on half the page first and then go through it as you describe what we're looking at, or what's your preference on that?
That'd be fine. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to zoom this a little bit. So we've got the top half of the left side of that page on the screen right now. Tell the jury what we're looking at there.
So this is the notes section of the phone. Many of the phones come equipped with a place you can write down notes and thoughts as a standard part of the phone. And so in the notes section of the phone, on February 19th at 2020 at 11:53 a.m. local time in Colorado. So this was actually 1:53 p.m. when the defendant did this in her local time out in South Carolina.
1:53 p.m. you mean?
Yes, did I say?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, at 1:53 p.m.
Okay.
So there's a 2-hour time difference between Mountain Time and East Coast time. And so the title of the note is, "In the case involving missing child Gannon Stauch, do you intend on ...
So to have a note like this created, does this require effort on the part of the phone user to put
Yes.
this information in there?
It does. You have to launch the note section and begin typing and filling out.
So that
note.
title, would that be something that the phone would create the title to be, or would that be something that the user of the phone actually typed in?
It could be either or. If the user did not type in a title, it'll grab the first several characters of the first paragraph and just put that in as the title.
Okay. So regardless, though, the text of that would still be something that the phone user would have to put in? Is that what you're telling us?
That's correct.
Scrolling down to the mid portion of the left side of that page, tell the jury what we're looking at there and why it's important.
So the source, that's the note section. It tells you where this is coming from on the phone. The extraction type, there's a few different ways to download a phone. This extraction was done using an advanced logical. It's not important. The next is the source file. It's the path of how to get to this note section in the phone.
And then now we're at the bottom of the left side of that page. Tell the jury what they're looking at there.
The defendant typed in under the summary of this note, "telling the truth?" ?
Is that essentially just a continuation of the title? Do you intend on and then telling the truth?
It's possible. Yep.
Okay. Now we're going to go over to the right side of page 1, looking at the top quarter of that page. Tell the jury what we're looking at there.
Like I previously described, the title, if not manually entered, it's going to take the first part of the first paragraph, and this is what you see. So there's a question in the body of the note saying, "In the case involving missing child Gannon Stauch, do you intend on telling the truth?" ?
And the next line?
The next one is a second question saying, "In the case involving your stepson, Gannon, did you inflict harm on him in any way?" And then the third question is, "Did you accidentally hurt him in a physical way?" And the fourth question is, "Did you murder your stepson?" And the fifth question is, "Do you know personally who is involved with your stepson's disappearance?"
Is that the sum of the first page of People's Exhibit 692?
It is.
Okay, moving on to page 2. We're going to start again on the left side. What is page 2 of People's Exhibit 692?
This is a corresponding web history on the defendant's phone. We're now 2 days after that note was created, 3 days after the wire call you heard from Agent Cohen with the gentleman from fakepolygraph.com. So the web history begins on 2/21 of 20 at 7:21 a.m. local, so 9:21 a.m. Eastern. And the defendant searched on the phone fake polygraph test using Google.
Had you had a chance to look at that particular web page, that fake polygraph web page?
I did.
Was there a place in that page where someone that wants to purchase a polygraph test, would they type in their own questions?
You do.
Those questions that we saw at the right-hand side of page 1, did those appear to be questions that could be typed into this page?
Just copy paste. Yes.
Scrolling down on the left side of page 2, tell the jury what we're looking at there and describe anything that would be of importance for this particular page.
So anytime you do a search or visit a website, your phone keeps count of how many times you do that. This was a single hit, only visited one time. It was used, the Safari browser was used. And again, it's just the source file. This is the path of how to get to this web history portion of the phone.
Now we're going to go over to the right side of page 2, looking again at the top. What are we looking at there?
So about 10 seconds later, after searching fake polygraph test on Google, the website fakelidetectortest.com was visited.
Were you able to determine, are these two different web pages? So the fake polygraph and then this fake lie detector?
There are two different web pages, but it's the same company.
So it points to the same source, basically?
It does.
Again, anything of importance on the bottom half of the right side of page 2?
No.
Moving on to page 3, looking at the left side of page 3. What are we looking at there?
So when you're on this website, the first screen that you visit, you fill out your name, you type in the location of where the polygraph was administered, and then you click order, and then you enter in your 5 questions with a pass or fail button. You know, you click yes for a pass or fail. And this is where you would type in your questions and the answers that you want to get on those questions.
Does this indicate that the user of this particular phone was trying to order that fake lie detector test?
Yes, the user went to that next step.
Now this is the bottom half of the left side of page 3. Same information as before, that it's advanced logical and using Safari.
Yes.
Moving over to the top half of the right side of page 3. What are we looking at there?
So about 10 minutes has gone by, and now we're at the payment screen. So you enter in your credit card information to pay for the fake lie detector test that you just administered yourself with the questions and answers that you wanted.
In the bottom half of the right side of page 3.
Same thing, just the Safari web browser was used, the type of phone download, which is an advanced logical, and then the path to how to get to this web history.
Okay. Now we're on to page 4. Yeah, zoom just a tad, and we're looking at the top half of the left side of page 4. Tell the jury what we're looking at.
So 2 minutes after the payment screen on the fake lie detector website, the defendant Googled, can you get away with fake lie detector website? And detector was misspelled.
The bottom half of the left side of page 4, is that just the same information that we've talked about on each one of these pages?
It is.
And then is that the extent of the information as relates to People's 692?
It is.
All of this information that we just looked at as it relates to People's 692, does this require effort on the part of a user to both search and then go through this ordering process?
Yes.
When you look at you can take the screen down for just a moment, Your Honor. We're getting your clicks in today, Judge. Right. When you have a chance to review a Celebrite or a other type of download of a phone, does it also include information about the status of the phone? So like if I pick up my phone and the screen comes on, can you tell that information on a download of this particular device?
Depending on the phone and depending on the type of download, yes.
And we're going back now to the phone that was seized on January 29th of 2020 by Lieutenant Mitch Malholko at the time, but now Commander Mitch Malholko. Did the download of that particular phone that was seized from the defendant have that information in it as well?
Yes, it did.
Is that information stored in the metadata of that particular download?
It's in the database of the phone download, yes.
I just wanted to say metadata again.
I'm sure I'll say it again
Yeah.
sometime this morning.
So what kind of information did you get from the phone that was seized from the defendant on January 29, 2020 as to its status at the time that the Tiguan telematics showed up at the S-curve in southern Douglas County on the 29th, I think it is, or 28th, I'm sorry.
So as far as the status, so aside from your regular download of calls, text, phone, or pictures, videos, that kind of stuff, just like Mr. Allen showed, you can see when the phone changes orientation from landscape to portrait. You can see when the phone is plugged in and charging and unplugged. And all this is to the second. You can see when the screen lights up, when the screen goes out, when the device is locked, when the device is unlocked. The battery level, date and time of, if it's at 5% all the way to 99% to fully charged. You get a lot of the, just what the phone is doing in the background processes.
Does the information that you gained as it relates to the status of the defendant's, I'm going to call it the Colorado phone, the phone that's seized on January 29th, does that give you insight into the question that was asked of Special Agent Hoyland, whether the phone, after it leaves the house, goes up to Falcon and then over to that S-curve? The question was asked, was the phone in airplane mode? Was it turned off? What's the status? Does this give you insight into that?
It does.
Was the defendant's phone on when the Tiguan made the visit to the S-curve the first time?
It was.
And People's Exhibit 693, what you should have in front of you, is that a summary of the phone activity coinciding with the time that the Tiguan makes a visit up to the S-curve in southern Douglas County?
It does.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the information you derived from the download of the defendant's Colorado iPhone?
It is.
All right, I'd move for admission of 693.
No objection. Exhibit 693 will be admitted.
And Judge, I want to use the TV screen to show that, and I'm going to also, next to on the screen, People 693, I'm going to show page 38 of Special Agent Hoyland's report, which shows the visit to the S-curve. Okay, so Mr. Clark, on the right-hand side of the screen, we have pulled up page 38 of Special Agent Hoyland's CAST report, which is Exhibit 293. Is this the time that we're talking about where there's a visit by the Tiguan, the defendant's Tiguan, on January 28th, 9 p.m. hour?
Yes.
And then on the left side of the screen, we have People's Exhibit 693. I'm going to zoom in on that so we can see this better. So starting at the top where it says battery level, describe what we're looking at in the battery level, and then I'll scroll over when you tell me to scroll over so we can see the rest of that table.
So this is one of the records in the phone's database of processes and performance and things like that. We're looking at the battery level. This is record number 12,938. And this is local time. So on January 28th of 2020 at 7:03 and 55 seconds PM, the battery was at 5%. Now this is a rounded number. The battery was actually at 4.6, a whole bunch of numbers, percent. So every few seconds, the phone will capture a date and a time and what the battery status, battery level is of the phone. It indicates if it's plugged in and charging with just a simple yes or no. And then the last column is fully charged with just a yes or no.
So what is the battery level table on People's Exhibit 693 telling us?
So it coincides with when the defendant left the airport in the Tiguan at 7:02 PM on this night. If you can scroll over to the right.
Okay.
2 minutes into the drive, the phone is plugged in because it goes from 5% to 6%, and now it says yes that it's charging.
Let's talk about what you can tell from the telematics of the Tiguan as it relates to cell phone activity as well. There was testimony about the defendant picking Al Stauch up at the airport on the morning of January 28th in a white Kia. Do you remember that?
The Rio, yes.
Yes. Where was the Tiguan at that time?
It was in the short-term parking lot of the Colorado Springs Airport.
Did it stay in that short-term parking lot until basically when this starts at 7:00 PM on the 28th?
Until 7:02 PM, yes.
And then now looking at the second table on People's Exhibit 693, tell the jury what we're looking at there.
This kind of complements the battery level as it's just looking at the device plugged in states. So all this does is tell us whether it's plugged in or unplugged, a date and a time and of when that happens, of when it's either plugged or unplugged. And if you scroll to the right, the date and the time of whatever the next event was. And so you see it's plugged in from 7:04 PM until 9:20 PM. And then it's unplugged at 9:20 and 55 seconds until 10:52 and 3 seconds.
So using Special Agent Hoyland's report, page 38, that's on the right side of the screen up there, that 9:20 PM, what's the significance of the phone being plugged in from 7:04 until 9:20 PM and then unplugged at 9:20 PM and in relation to what we see on the right side of the screen?
So this is the whole reason we moved search operations to this S-curve in Douglas County. We noted that it took about 5 minutes longer to go from south to north than it did coming back north to south. And so that indicates that the Tiguan loitered for about 5 minutes in this area. You see it comes up at 9:16 PM. It's up here at 9:19 PM. Comes back down at 9:19 and 9:20. And then isn't through the S-curve until 9:28. So somewhere in this area, the vehicle loitered for about 5 minutes. Now we don't have any phone data with that. As Special Agent Hoyland testified that there was no data connections. There was no calls or text messages that would generate a tower with a sector hit. And so this helps, this supports that the phone was placed in airplane mode during this time. So the phone was on, but it was in airplane mode, so it disconnected from the cellular network.
And so is that why we only have the Tiguan telematics data for this period of time as opposed to cell phone and Life 360 like we had in other maps?
That's correct. And with the battery levels, it shows that the phone didn't just die, out of power, that it was plugged in and charging. And so the next part that we're going to talk about will show how we know the phone is actually on.
And so when we're talking about the phone being plugged in at 7:04 PM and then unplugged at 9:20 PM,
Yes.
using Special Agent Hoyland's map, roughly where was that phone unplugged?
Between here and here.
And the board that was recovered from that S curve that had Gannon's blood on it is where?
Right in the middle, right here.
And then now we're looking at a third table that's on People's Exhibit 693. What are we looking at there?
This is the device screen lock state. And so what we see is we see the user locking and unlocking the phone to do something with the phone while it's at this S curve. Had the phone just been powered off, you wouldn't see the screen lock and unlock. You'd see the battery charging if it was plugged in, but the phone wouldn't be locking and unlocking had it been powered off. So this supports that the phone was off the network, and the only way to do that is to put it in airplane mode while it's powered on. And so what you see is a series of screen locks during the time that the Volkswagen Tiguan's at the S curve, where the board would later be found.
Does this indicate intentional effort on the part of whoever's using this phone?
Yes.
We can turn off the screen for a moment, Judge. Thank you. As it relates to your efforts as a crime analyst, is it typical to, especially in a case like this where it's spanning days and weeks, helpful for you to create timelines to help connect the dots with different events that occur in an investigation?
It is. That's one of the functions I provide, is creating these timelines.
What kind of things can you put onto a timeline, generally speaking?
Anything with a date and time or location, or a combination.
Are you using then known sources so that you get those specific date and time locations and informations?
Yes, the timelines are objective. So it comes from a culmination of all the evidence, from financial transactions to text messages sent and received to surveillance captured when and where, any type of event that might tell the story as to what happened.
Okay. Did you create a series of timelines for this investigation?
I did.
Okay. Judge, just wondering about time. It might be a good time to take a break so we can get organized for the timeline presentation, or we can go a little bit further. It's really up to you, Judge.
If you can go about 10 minutes, that'd be better. But
Okay.
if you need to get organized to do that, that's okay too.
Okay, we'll go about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
See if I can push it that long.
All right.
How does your creation of a timeline help understand the events in a case?
It visualizes all of the little data points, and when you can see in a sequence of how they happened, it sheds light as to understanding what happened. And so what you're going to see is they're called linear timelines. That's because they happen in an order of operations in linear fashion. So on the left is the beginning and on the right is the end, and everything's going to have a date and a time, and then whatever the data point is, whether it came from the phone or it came from financials or it came from surveillance, whatever the data point is.
Okay. And as it relates to timelines that were created for this case, the things that we see on the timelines, are they things that were admitted into evidence in this particular trial?
Yes.
Are they printed out and put onto poster boards that are leaning against the wall behind you?
We printed them out as large as we could, yes.
Okay. A lot of information on these?
A lot of information.
People's Exhibit 695, just to give some ideas to what we're looking at when we get to the timelines. People's 695, what's the timeline date for that particular timeline?
That's going to be Sunday, January 26th of 2020.
And the timeline that you created that's printed up on People's 695, is it a fair and accurate representation of the events that occurred in this case as it relates to evidence that was admitted in this trial?
Yes.
And then People's Exhibit 696, what is the timeline for that particular exhibit?
That's going to be Monday, January 27th.
Are there, in fact, 3 pages of that particular timeline?
There are.
So would that exhibit be marked as People's Exhibit 696, page 1 of 3, page 2 of 3, and page 3 of 3?
They are, yes.
Same question as before. The information that's going to be on those pages of People's Exhibit 696, is it information that was admitted in this trial?
Yes.
People's Exhibit 697, what's the timeline for that particular exhibit?
That's going to be Tuesday, January 28th of 2020.
How many pages are included on the Tuesday, January 28th timeline?
4.
So is that exhibit marked People's Exhibit 697, 1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, and 4 of 4?
Yes,
And the data points that are put into that timeline, are they from exhibits that were admitted in this trial?
they are, yes.
And then People's Exhibit 698, what is the timeline date for that particular exhibit?
That's going to be Wednesday, January 28th of 2020.
29th?
29th, I'm sorry. Yes,
That's okay.
29th.
How many pages is that exhibit?
I believe it's 2.
So is that exhibit marked People's Exhibit 698, page 1 of 2, and then page 2 of 2, People's Exhibit 698?
That's correct.
Same question as before, are the data points from items of evidence that were admitted in this trial?
They are.
People's Exhibit 699, what is the date referenced in that exhibit?
That's going to be Thursday, January 30th of 2020.
How many pages for that exhibit?
Just 1.
And are the data points from items of evidence admitted at this trial?
Yes.
People's Exhibit 700, what's the date for that timeline?
Friday, January 31st of 2020.
How many pages?
Just 1.
And the data points on that particular exhibit, are they from items of evidence admitted during this trial?
Yes.
Exhibit number 701, what are the dates referenced in that exhibit?
February 1st through February 4th.
How many pages in that exhibit?
Just 1.
And are the data points entered onto that timeline, are they from items of evidence admitted in this trial?
Yes.
And then People's Exhibit 702, what are the relevant dates of that timeline?
February 5th through March 17th of 2020.
How many pages for that exhibit?
Just 1.
And are the items or the data points for that particular timeline from items of evidence admitted during the course of this trial?
Yes.
Or at this time, I'd move for admission of 695 through 702.
Defense. All right, 695 through 702 will be admitted.
And then Judge, this might be a good time to take that break because once we get into these exhibits, it's going to be pretty dense testimony, I think.
No, that makes sense. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will take our morning break. If I can have everyone back in the jury room at 10:30, we should be able to start on time at that point. Again, do not discuss the case among yourselves. Do not discuss the case with anyone else. With that, all rise for the jury, please. Thank you. You may all be seated. The record should reflect the jury has left the courtroom. Mr. Clark, you can step down. Counsel approach, please.
Yeah, I'm not really all that political. Like, all I know is I don't like a lot of these people. Our guy's like, ooh, stuff. But yeah, again, I don't really pay that much attention. I just kind of, as a human, I think he sucks. But holy crap, I've seen him dig himself out personally with a fair amount of money. Well said, Mexi. Yeah, I won't put that on the screen, but I have to believe what you're saying is, yeah, kind of, this is where I get my dislike for him. I think he's just gross. And I always have, when his name came up that he was going to go after that job, didn't surprise me at all that he got it, just because his ability to market or his guy's ability. But yeah, just kind of as a human, I think he's gross. And yeah, whether he was involved with Epstein or not, because I mean, I really don't know anything along those lines. Oh, look at that. Where am I? Let's do this. Panda Biz. There we are. I'm going to turn the volume down. Oh my God. You know what? What else is what's happening for sound there? Come here, kid. Get in here. Get back in the house. Boof. I told you to stay still. Good for the soul. Yeah. Yeah, politics and religion. Everybody's got their strongs, very much strong opinions when it comes to both. I'm not political and I'm not overly, well, I'm not religious. I have my absolute own beliefs. Only God and Epstein know the answers now. Well said. Well, do you know what? I also think there might be another gal behind bars that might know what has gone on. I really do. Hope she stays safe. I know that who we have running for us, he's destroyed our economy, in my opinion. Like, destroyed our economy. And then what's bizarre is, I mean, we're in trouble. And yet they send like how much money to go help with this and help with that? And it's like, holy crap. Maxie. Okay. Yeah, I don't know about the island either. I have no idea. But that'd be great. This would be a great conversation for the other channel. You know, I did a video on them. Oh my goodness, like quite some time ago. It's in my other laptop. But with this lovely mountain streaming, it was literally like almost like a day to download it. Literally, I've been doing 15, 20-minute videos lately. And with the way our internet has been, it's been taking about 5 hours to download those. It says 2.5, but it stops and then this happens and that happens. And I don't know. We don't have fiber optics and we need it. MSN would be all over it. Yeah. I don't watch those channels either. It's kind of like poison ivy. I avoid it at all costs. I'm not a Gerard Butler fan either, so. But kind of, I'll be honest with you, for the same reason is I've seen him been not very nice to women. And as soon as I kind of see that quality, yeah, I'm like, no. It's like Nicolas Cage years ago, like I am talking years ago. He said something about it being okay about slapping women or something along those lines. And it was on a talk show. And literally, I've disliked that man ever since. Get down here, kid. Get down here. Did no one watch? No, Law Abiding Citizen. He was great and sexy in that. I could give you names from the flight log. I would love that, James. Is there any way you could send that to me on Discord if you like if you've got like a list that you're able to send me? That would be fun. Do you ever think about going on? Would you do like go up on panel, James? I didn't see that either. I'm not a movie girl. I like documentaries, like everything true crime. Like I don't watch much other. And honestly, you guys will probably go, "What the hell are you thinking?" when I say this. But for my downtime, I've literally been watching the Kardashians for the very first time in my life. Magnum PI. Okay. If I could do that without getting a strike. A lot easier to grab onto the stream. Oh my God. Last Friday? What a joke. See what I can find for Magnum PI. That was a great damn show. Oh, yes, she's got a good voice. I could do the Batman one with her. I know that one. Oh, damn straight. Oh my goodness. I think you're a little bit younger than me, James, but I think we're kind of close because we are very familiar with a lot of the same stuff. I'm older than dirt. Hey, but that's okay. Or sand, which, what did you say that was? Sand was made out of Mexi? Petrified fish poop. Ooh-wee. Oh my God, everyone loved Tom Selleck. It's like, really? A child of the 70s. I'm 56. Fish poo. It's not fish poo. I have never heard of anybody getting bombed to death while scuba diving by whale shit. I have never seen it. I've never seen it, never heard of it. But wouldn't that happen? Like, what the hell? Where does that stuff go anyways? Yeah. Aging is a privilege, Bruja. Do you know what? 100%. I'm honestly, I'm not going to complain about it. I mean, it's kind of interesting getting used to all of these changes because they happen fairly quick, but 48? Okay. Okay. So you know a lot of this stuff probably from like either an older sibling or your parents had it on or yeah, I do appreciate that. Age is a privilege. There's a time I didn't think I'd make 18. Happy to still be here. I'll take every gray hair, every wrinkle. I've earned them all. After Burt Reynolds. Yeah, Burt Reynolds had a pretty good stash. Lots of reruns. See, I don't even watch those anymore. Like yeah. History, true crime, documentaries, and the Kardashians. How's that for a mix? Honestly, I mean, I don't watch that family because I think, oh my God, they're so awesome. I watch that show because it's like probably the most brain dead program I can watch there. The 70s porn stash is coming back. Ooh, okay, what you looking at? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, Bruja. Like, that's what I'm kind of wondering. They're interesting to watch because they're so far from reality, at least my reality, that it's like, what? And they're entitled. Like, it's like, what the hell? But yeah, I don't mind watching it just to like, what the hell's going on? Oh, damn, James. Yeah. Happy to have you here. Yeah. Yep. They own a church. Yep. And then everybody also has to pay $1,000 to join that church. And then they want their 10% too. Oh, it is just to not have to think. Yeah. They're, what do they call her? Mummager? She's got it down. Yeah. Amazing. And then whoever that fellow was that she brought a garbage bag full of like money back from Vegas is like, oh my God. Just not like, as far as it, not a fan of her at all. She's a spoiled little brat. Oh, that's a fascinating case, is right. Damn straight. The Wonderland murders. Porn star gone like dealer. Not a great one. Yeah. What's his name again? Damn. I see his face and his stash. Who do I have up that I wanted to do on that other channel? Yes, that's the fellow John Holmes. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I like all the like gangland. I like all the crimes from different countries. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because I'm a sucker for an accent. If I study those ones, well, I get to hear like the accents the whole time. Do you want to hear something funny? I showed it to Mexi at one time. My Siri, she talks in Australian. She talks Aussie. I agree with you, James. Yeah. Yeah. And he wasn't like the most mentally sound individual ever. Yeah. I wonder where it is. Wonder if I've got it in my, let me take a peek here. If I got, nope. Trying to see if I've got. Oh, does she? Are you serious, Dandy? That's funny, you guys. Yes, we are. Hey, Dandy, hubby's taken me a little further out, and we're gonna go to a private, like a cabin on a lake for a few days and hit up the hot springs. And you motivated us. I'll see if I can stream from there. I'm kind of hoping that they can't be much worse than what we have here. So yeah, a couple nights away. Hang out where there's no people at all. The dogs will love it. We are hilarious. John Holmes, good Lord. So we got Irish, Indian, Aussie. Oh, look at us. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, James. It was a rough winter, so I'm looking forward to kind of sitting in the heat and letting the body soak. Where we're heading, there's actually springs that are not public. You just have to know where they are. There's a few different ones. It's on an island. I'm very much looking forward to it. If I end up doing a live, I'll do it on Franky. I should actually bring my other computer, because if they've got better internet, I could download that Epstein. We're back. That's what I'm hoping, Dandy. Yeah, absolutely. I haven't been in for probably, well, it's been a few years. Why is this timing out? Everyone's moving. I think we're back. Yeah. Where we're going, they've got quite a few fossils. Hair found on
Mr. Allen, are you planning on using that easel?
matched
Not
Aloe
until we get to the simulator
Daybell.
exhibits. We're going to put these on the actual TVs.
What? Hair found on
We
duct
use
tape
the
with
printed
son's
out
body
photos
matched
too.
Velo
It's
Daybell.
so small writing.
What the hell? Ooh. Idaho Statesman. Damn, he's good.
All rise for the jury, please.
Yeah, they've got all sorts of crystals that you can go rock hounding for. They've got a lot of driftwood. They've got like a lot of different mushrooms into the pines, and that one time they actually had a mushroom vendor out there. They had a little store by one of the ferries.
Thank you. May all be seated. Court will recall 20 CR 1358 people.
Leticia's actually alert.
Jury has returned to the courtroom. Mr. Allen?
Thank you, Ron. Just continuing with Mr. Clark, and if we could have the TV on, we're going to start with People's Exhibit 695. All right, Mr. Clark. First, just as we're going to start digging into these timelines, just orient the jury to how the timelines are constructed, and then we'll actually start zooming in when we look at specifics.
Okay. So all of them are pretty standard and uniform in the way they're designed. They're going to read from left to right in order that the sequences of events happened. So you're going to have the calendar day of the time period we're looking at. On the top, you're going to have your like legend in a map. This is just the exhibit number. You don't have to worry about that. This is some of the exhibits and data points that are going to fill the timeline. So that way every little data point doesn't have to have an exhibit number attached to it. And we're just going to go left to right. The defendant, when data comes off of her cell phone, like text messages, what you'll see is you'll see the defendant's picture outlined in red and the words of that text message underneath of them. The same when it's Al's outlined in blue. And when it's a text message from Al, you'll see his picture with the words underneath. Same with Harley, the same with anyone else. The cast report is present in a lot of these timelines to kind of reference movement of people and devices and vehicles and things like that. And we'll just zoom in and just go one by one.
Okay, so for this particular, you pointed out the sources of the information for this timeline, which is in that top left portion of the screen there.
Yes,
And so we're talking about the download from Mr. Stauch's phone, the download from Harley Hunt's phone, and the download from the defendant's phone.
that's correct.
And then the cast report, that's the report that Special Agent Hoyland created that shows movement of GPS information.
That's correct.
All right. And the date for this particular exhibit is which date?
Right now we're Sunday, January 26th of 2020.
Okay, so let's zoom in. So what is the first entry on this exhibit?
The first entry is 6:55 a.m. Mr. Stauch, Al, he departed his flight out of DIA, Denver International Airport, to Dallas, Texas, at 6:55 a.m.
During the course of this trial, have you been serving as advisory witness?
I have.
Does that allow you to be in the courtroom while you're hearing testimony from other witnesses?
It does.
Were you here when we were hearing portions of the forensic sanity evaluation that was performed in this case?
I was there for that, yes.
There were some statements made by the defendant in that sanity evaluation about going to church on this Sunday, January 26th. Was there anything to indicate that there had been a trip from the 6627 Mandan Drive to a church
No.
that morning?
No.
What is the next entry on this exhibit?
So the morning passes, and so the next like significant event on Sunday was at 2 p.m. when the hike at the Garden of the Gods took place. And so what you're seeing here is this bracket at the top. All of the subsequent events or data points occurred while this hike at the Garden of the Gods took place. And it begins when the Tiguan leaves 6627 Mandan Drive at 2 p.m. to go to the Garden of the Gods.
So prior to 2 p.m., nobody's leaving the house.
No.
Okay. And what happens at 3:15 p.m.?
3:15, Harley clocks in at her work at Massage Envy.
Is that indicated also in that cast report that Special Agent Hoyland created?
That's true. It might be a little difficult to see, but what you see here is you see the tower and the sector that covers the residence, and then the phone move up north where it had activity off the towers and sectors that cover Massage Envy.
And that would be Harley's phone.
Correct. And the time of all that corresponds with when she clocked in to work.
What is the time of the next event on this timeline?
At 3:36 p.m., Mr. Stauch sent Gannon a text message that reads, "Hey, buddy."
And the next event?
At 3:41 p.m., this picture was taken from the defendant's phone, picture number 6114, at 3:41 p.m., and it's a selfie of the defendant, Laina, with Gannon's little sister, and Gannon.
When we're talking about getting information from cell phones and this cast report, is it helpful to find things like this that sort of corroborate that certain things happened in certain areas?
Yes,
And is that what we're looking at there at that 3:41 p.m., that there was in fact a trip made by the defendant and the two young children to Garden of the Gods?
yes.
The next entry is at 3:53 p.m. to 4:11 p.m. Tell the jury what that is.
This is a conversation between the defendant and Mr. Stout, Gannon's dad, Al. In summation, it's about why they had to leave the hike at Garlic Gauze because Gannon had an accident in his pants.
Does that basically just continue on discussing the reaction to Gannon having an accident in his pants?
Yes.
The next entry is actually at 4:46 p.m. What does that indicate?
That's when the Tiguan and the defendant's Life 360 and Tower data all indicate that they all returned home at 4:46 p.m. So 6627 Mandan Drive.
When we say that they all returned home, who is the they that we're referring to there?
The defendant, Gannon, and Laina.
And where is Harley Hunt at this particular time?
She's still at work at Massage Envy.
Next entry that you have on the timeline is from 5:11 p.m. to 5:12 p.m. What is that?
This is a conversation that takes place between Harley and the defendant from 5:11 to 5:12. Harley mentioned it during her testimony that she asked if the defendant could bring her food at work, and that's this conversation.
The next entry is at 9:46 p.m. What is that entry?
This is the video taken from the defendant's phone, video number 6115, and it's the video of a candle had spilt, and the defendant is telling Gannon about how they're going to have to sell items to pay to fix it, and it ends with Gannon saying, "I'm just worried about my burns," and then the defendant saying, "So tomorrow," and then ending the movie.
During that sanity evaluation, we also heard some statements from the defendant as she's talking to the doctor about Gannon being out in the street yelling. You remember that portion of the video?
I do.
Was there anything indicated in any device, whether it's a neighborhood ring or a doorbell videos or anything like that, that would indicate Gannon was ever out in the street yelling on this Sunday night, January 26th?
No.
The next entry you have on the timeline is at 9:54 p.m. What is that?
This is a text message conversation between the defendant and Harley. And the defendant sends a message saying, "Do panic," but Gannon turned on a candle downstairs and set the downstairs on fire. I had to get the dogs and Laina out and run back downstairs and jump on him with a cover and put it out. I kept jumping on it. He is fine. He is scared and saying sorry and freaking out. Harley responded with, "The fire was on Chance."
Who is Chance?
It's, their dog, named after Harley's deceased biological father.
The next entry you have on there is 9:56 p.m. What is that?
During this conversation between the defendant and Harley, the defendant took this picture. You see a candle with some spilt wax on the carpet and the blue blanket that we later saw pulled out of the pink polka dot suitcase in South Carolina. So at 9:54, this text message, 2 minutes after this message started and sent, this picture was taken.
On the defendant's phone?
Correct.
The next entry you have is at 9:57 p.m. What is that?
The defendant's responding over text message with Harley saying, "No, Chance was upstairs. The house is smoky. I didn't call fire department because I put it out right away." And then with that text message, the defendant attached the picture taken of the candle spilt.
What's the rest of that conversation?
Harley's still at work, so you can tell she might be a little distracted because she's not understanding. She's saying the fire was on Chance. And the defendant said, "I jumped on him with a cover." And so it was just a lot of kind of back and forth between the defendant and Harley clarifying what had happened and that the dogs were fine.
So the next entry that you have is at 9:58 p.m. to 9:59 p.m. Is that basically from 9:58 p.m. all the way to 10:15 p.m.? Is that just a continuation of that conversation between the defendant's phone and Harley's phone?
Yes.
Was there anything of significance mentioned in this conversation other than the discussion about the fire and the circumstances associated with it?
Other than the defendant portraying herself as a hero of putting the fire out and saving Gannon, no.
There was also some information shared by the defendant about jumping into the car and leaving the residence during this fire incident. Was there anything on video that corroborated that occurred?
No.
Was there any indication that they ever left on Sunday night, January 26th? They being the defendant, Laina, Gannon, and I guess Harley's still at work, but
Harley still at work, yeah. Or the dogs, as indicated in the messages, no.
okay.
No.
The next entry you have is at 10:18 p.m. What is that entry?
This is when Harley clocked out of Massage MD.
The next entry is 10:24 p.m. What is that?
Just more continuation of clarifying what had happened with this candle event between the defendant and Harley.
Does she also send another picture indicating the fire?
She shows a picture of the couch that has some wax on it. You can see the droplets of wax on it, and she sends that picture to Harley.
Did you see that particular photo as it relates to the couch itself and the couch cushion? Did you physically see those items?
Yes,
Did it appear that there was any burns on that couch, or was it just dripped wax?
it looked like just dripped wax to me.
The next entry, and it looks like the last entry that you have on the timeline for Sunday night or Sunday, January 26th, is at 11:30 p.m. What is that?
So it takes Harley approximately 20 minutes to get home. Harley's now home when this message from the defendant goes to Mr. Stout. It's 11:30 p.m. Sunday night, and it reads, Gannon was on the toilet most of the night upstairs and downstairs. He had a candle on earlier tonight because he said he kept smelling poop from his accidents in his pants. That's what he told us afterwards. And he went for his headphones and dropped it, catching the covers and couch, small spot, on fire. I got Laina and dogs outside when we heard fire alarm. But once I got down there to get him, I had to throw another cover on it. It was minimal. No need to call for help or anything because nothing too bad. He is upset and wrote on the notebook he was sorry. He didn't want me to tell you because he was scared and freaking out about getting in trouble and being grounded. It's stuff we can fix and everyone is okay. I burnt my arm a little, but it's all good. He was more scared and embarrassed.
Sure.
And then Mr. Stout did not respond at this time.
Is that the last entry on this particular exhibit?
It is.
All right. We're going to move on to People's Exhibit 696, page 1 of 3. So I want to go first, and we'll do this with each one of these exhibits. What are the sources of information for this exhibit?
So the main sources of information are Mr. Stauch's phone download, the defendant's phone download, and Harley's phone download. When there's conversation between the defendant and Mr. Stauch, it's under exhibit number 32. That's what the text bubble indicates. When there's conversation between the defendant and Harley, it's under exhibit number 205. And now we have a new person on this link or timeline. It's Ms. Leslie Hicks, who was the assistant principal at Mountain Ridge Middle School. And the text messages between her and the defendant are represented in exhibit number 207. And we still have the CAS report.
The FBI report?
The FBI CAS report, yes.
Okay. In the date of this particular exhibit and date and time span for page 1 of 3 on 696.
So Monday's broken up into 3 sections, and this is the first section. And we're looking from midnight until noon. So we're looking at a 12-hour window, the first half of Monday, the 27th.
The first entry that you have on this exhibit is at 2:48 a.m. Can you tell the jury what that is?
It's 2:48 in the morning, and the defendant sends Mr. Stauch a text message that says, he is in the bathroom again and blood coming out butthole, and he is crying about going to school tomorrow. Like this, and he is still upset about the candle accident. I told him it's fine, and that as long as he was okay, not to worry about something minor we can fix, and to let's worry about his stomach hurting.
Any indication that Mr. Stauch had seen that text message at that particular time?
No.
Okay. The next entry is at 4:36 a.m. What is that?
This is a message from the defendant to Ms. Hicks, the assistant principal. And the defendant sent a message saying, I'm sorry for the time of night message, but my stepfather passed away. Someone hit him with a car while he was walking. I can update you at a later time, and included a the crying face emoji.
We had testimony from Dakota Lowry, the defendant's brother. What did the defendant's stepfather pass away on this January 27th date?
No.
When did he actually pass away? Do you remember?
Um,
Was it years before this?
it was September 21st of 2006, I believe.
The next entry is from 4:36 a.m. to 5:02 a.m. What is that?
This is a series of text messages back and forth between the defendant and Mr. Stout. So 4:36 a.m., the defendant sends a message saying, "I'm just going to give them an excuse at work and stay with him. I don't think you should be here alone. We haven't really slept, and we haven't heard from you by call since you left Saturday night."
And did Al Stauch respond to that?
He did. He responded, "OMG, is he okay? I texted him too."
Then go ahead and just indicate who is sending which text and read the rest of that string.
So then the defendant replies, "He just laid down again. I just left from down there with him." Mr. Stauch says, "Okay." The defendant says, "I love you and miss you." And Mr. Stauch says, "I too."
Then jumping now to 5:03 a.m. to 5:04 a.m., the next entry on this timeline, what are we looking at here?
Just a continuation of the previous conversation. The defendant sends a message to Mr. Stout saying, "I'm exhausted. He was so pitiful and freaking out about fixing the carpet, but told him to worry about his stomach. I can't sleep because I have coughed nonstop from that smoke." And then attach the same candle picture from the night before that she sent Harley while Harley was at work. And Mr. Stout didn't respond at this time.
The next entry is at 5:49 a.m. What is that entry?
This is a text message from Ms. Leslie Hicks, the assistant principal. And it reads, "Oh my goodness, Tisha, I'm so sorry. Shall we try to find a sub for you today?" And then the defendant responds approximately 2 hours later at 7:21 a.m. saying, question mark, "It's apparent. All my family lives on the East Coast. I am trying to find a way to get there."
The next entry is at 7:32 a.m. What is that entry?
So the last message was sent at 7:21. So approximately 11 minutes later, Ms. Leslie Hicks replies back to the defendant saying, "Okay, I am just trying to understand your plans so that we can find coverage. Am I understanding that you will not be in today?" The defendant replies with, "Yes, it's my parent. I can't believe that you would not be an assumption in a time like this." And then Ms. Hicks responds with, "I'm so sorry for your loss and we will support you, but I cannot make assumptions. I do need some direction from you. We will get a sub today. Please let us know what else you need moving forward."
The next entry is at 8:09 a.m. Through 8:10 a.m. What is that?
So this is a 1-minute back and forth between the defendant and Mr. Stauch over text message. The defendant says, "I keep calling you back." And then Mr. Stauch says, "In class now, I'll call on break." The defendant says, "Okay, it's where he burnt the floor." Then Mr. Stauch replies with, "Burnt?" question mark. And then the defendant says, "He said he was playing his games and wasn't supposed to and thought someone was coming." Mr. Stauch says, "What?" The defendant says, "Yes, and I sent it to you last night and you said, 'OMG, I explained everything.'" And Mr. Stauch says, "I was so out of it from not sleeping."
The next entry is from 8:10 a.m. to 8:16 a.m. Tell the jury what that entry is.
It's the same lengthy text that was sent at 11:30 p.m. the night before about Gannon was on the toilet most of the night. The defendant got Laina and the dogs outside when she heard the fire alarm. So it was just a copy paste resend text message.
And then did Al respond to that particular?
Yep, he said, "Okay." And then the defendant said, "He told me this morning he was playing his game and didn't want to get caught. I had to fix the carpet. He said he accidentally knocked it over and couldn't put it out. When I got there, I threw the covers on it and jumped on it." And then Mr. Stauch replies with, "OMG." And the defendant says, "That's the sofa. Carpet I had to cut and add a piece. He was freaking out and crying and saying he was going to be grounded for a year, cut off some with scissors too, and you can't tell." And sent a picture of that sofa picture that we talked about earlier. Mr. Stauch didn't respond at this point.
The next entry you have is 8:14 a.m. What is that?
During this back and forth between the defendant and Al, the defendant takes a picture of Gannon laying in bed, where you see the bedding that he would later be found in Pensacola, Florida. His Nintendo Switch is placed right here by his hand. So this picture was taken at 8:14 a.m. And 4 minutes later, the defendant sends a second picture, so from a different angle and kind of more zoomed in, to Mr. Stauch saying, he is sleeping now. He said his stomach was really bad, plus he was upset about what he did. I told him you weren't going to ground him for a year, and that it's replaceable.
Did Mr. Stauch respond to those text messages?
Not at the time.
The next entry that you have is 8:30 a.m. What is that?
Harley clocks in at work at Massage Envy.
So prior to 8:30 a.m., who was home by all indications, at 6627 Main Dan Drive, the Stauch residence?
So it was the defendant, Harley, Gannon, and Laina. And then Laina left to go to school, and then Harley left to go to work.
So after 8:30 a.m., who is remaining at the 6627 Main Dan Drive, the Stauch residence?
Just the defendant and Gannon.
Next, we have 8:43 a.m. to 8:50 a.m. What is that?
It's a conversation back and forth between Mr. Stauch and the defendant. And this is when the idea of an unknown friend with an older brother who drives, Gannon wants to go hang out with them later that day, if he can bring some bath salts with him.
Who introduced this random friend with an older brother that can drive?
All investigative leads point to it was the defendant.
Was there ever any indication that Gannon had specifically sent any text messages to anybody like Mr. Stauch or anybody else asking to hang out with an older friend that had a car?
Those messages were sent minutes after that last picture of Gannon sleeping in bed from Gannon's phone to Mr. Stauch, describing how he met a new friend who has an older brother with a car and that they can hang out after school if he brings bath salts.
What is the significance of bath salts? I think a lot of people probably know about Epsom salts that you might put into a bath. Is there another connotation to bath salts?
So this is early 2020, and during that time period, there was, it started calling it the zombie drug, to where people were using bath salts to get high.
Were schools passing that information out to students at schools to be aware of this kind of stuff that's now popping up on the streets?
Yep, the schools did a information awareness campaign. There was stories on the news at night about bath salts in different states. So it was more prevalent than it is now.
The first mention of bath salts, is that first mentioned by the defendant in these text messages at this time?
No, it was first mentioned from Gannon's phone minutes after the picture was taken of Gannon in bed.
That the defendant sent to Al showing him asleep in bed?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any specifics during this particular exchange back and forth between the defendant's phone and Al's phone, Mr. Stauch's phone, that would be important for you to read to the jury? Or is this just basically discussing the bath salts?
It's just a summation about Tic Toc challenges and bath salts and things like that. And Al was completely against it, informing the defendant that bath salts can be used for other purposes other than, in the bath. The defendant was unaware through her messages back to Al of the, this usage. And so it's just a summation of back and forth about, he's not spending the night with people we don't know, and, absolutely not to bath salts, things like that.
At 9:21 a.m. to 9:24 a.m., is there some discussion about Tic Toc, although it says Talk Talk?
Correct. Yep. The defendant drafted a message that says he was watching Tic Toc, hiding it before you left, and I saw him looking at something where people throw quarters in the air and catch them. I told him about my brother Dakota, that he did that years ago and got lodged in no air, and my mom rushed him to the hospital. I was wondering why he was saying strange things out of character. So I blocked the switch for the Wi-Fi and Amazon because he was asking Alexa about it. That's why we went hiking, because I told them no technology all day. And then Mr. Stauch responds with, okay, yeah, we are going to have to keep a close eye because Laina was watching it and started crying the other day.
Most people probably know who Alexa is, but just so that we're clear, is this another person that's being introduced by the defendant, or what is that?
No, it's a home device that you can interact with, where you can shop with it or play music with it, or it'll tell you the weather, things like that. It's like a home digital personal assistant.
The next entry is at 9:27 a.m. Tell the jury what that is.
The conversation between the defendant and Harley, who's at work, and the defendant screenshotting the conversation between her and Mr. Stauch about the bath salts. And she sends those screenshots of the conversation to Harley saying, OMG, something isn't right.
Did Harley Hunt, is there any indication that Harley Hunt saw those text messages at that time?
Not at that time.
The next entry you have is at 9:54 a.m. to 9:59 a.m. What is that?
So this is getting ready to go on their outing Monday afternoon. So at 9:54 to 9:59 a.m., these messages were sent to Mr. Stauch from the defendant. Starts out with saying, left phone at home, call G's on my watch. It may stay connected and we will monitor it. And then at 9:59, Mr. Stauch replies with K. And then, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I think I was going to ask just what you were getting ready to jump into. So that text message about leaving home happens between 9:54 and 9:59. What time did they actually depart? And when I say they, tell us who the they is.
They, the defendant and Gannon, actually departed at 10:12.
And we see that on video that we've previously admitted, Exhibit 41, the surveillance video from 6643 Mandan Drive.
That's correct.
The next entry you have is at 10:39 a.m. to 2:45 p.m. What is that?
So after they leave, from 10:39 a.m. to 2:45 p.m., the defendant's phone had no outgoing activity. In fact, all of the incoming calls and text messages, the phone was in fact left at home, because here's the tower and sector that's servicing that activity. We know through financials and other investigative leads that the defendant drove the red Nissan truck up to the Petco on North Nevada. During this time, the phone was active at the house, but all incoming activity. There was no outgoing activity.
Based on looking at the download and other data points for the defendant's phone, was it unusual for her to leave her phone at home when she would go to trips to stores or what have you?
This is the only instance I know of that happening.
The next entry you have is at 11:22. What is that?
The defendant's at Petco at 5020 North Nevada Avenue. We have an American Express financial transaction under exhibit number 231 for $34.58. The defendant bought 3 outfits for the dog.
And then the next entry is at 11:28 a.m. What is that?
That's a message from Mr. Stauch to the defendant saying, I have to get a few toiletries from the PX. That was sent at 11:28 a.m. The defendant didn't read that message until 2:45 p.m.
Is that the last entry on page 1 of 3 of People's Exhibit 696?
Correct.
Moving on to page 2 of Exhibit 696. Again, we'll do this at the beginning of each one of these timelines. What are the sources of information for page 2 of 3 of People's Exhibit 696?
Phone, and now Gannon's phone, and the FBI CAS report. And then Ms. Hicks was removed because she's no longer
9 PM, what is that entry?
That's the video of the Volkswagen Tiguan backing into the garage.
Is that video that we just watched just a few moments ago, Exhibit 213?
It is.
The next entry is at 2:26 PM. What is that?
That's Mr. Stout sending the defendant a text message saying, "You there?" with 2 question marks. And just like the other message on the first page, this message isn't read until 2:45 PM with an okay as a reply.
Is this the first activity on the defendant's phone that indicates outgoing activity, meaning that somebody is manipulating the defendant's phone and sending out messages?
Yes, this is the first outgoing activity in several hours, and then there's not outgoing activity again for about another hour.
The next entry is at 3:10 PM. What is that entry?
Mr. Stauch responded to that, okay, were you sleeping at 3:10, and no response from the defendant.
The next entry is at 3:15 PM. What is that entry?
Laina gets home from school, and you just see her outside, just kind of loitering outside.
The next entry is at 3:31 PM. What is that entry?
This is Al, Mr. Stauch texting the defendant saying, hey, I've called a few times. A minute later, the defendant places an outgoing call to Mr. Stauch's phone that lasted 3 minutes and 35 seconds.
This period of time that we just looked at, from that 2:45 PM time when the defendant responded to Al Stauch's text at 2:26 PM through this outgoing call at 3:32 PM, is this another gap in time of no outgoing conduct on the defendant's phone?
It is.
Is that unusual based on looking at her historical use of her cell phone?
It is. Normally, it's very active.
3:35 PM is the next entry. What is that?
Mr. Stout sending another text message to Gannon saying, hey, buddy. Gannon didn't respond, and it wasn't read on his phone until 7:40 PM that night.
When that particular text message was read, is this that 7:40 PM? Is that after the defendant had called to report that Gannon was missing?
It is.
Who was home at 7:40 PM?
The defendant, Harley, Laina, and Gannon.
3:41 PM to 4:11 PM is the next that you have on the timeline. What is that?
The text messages between Mr. Stauch and the defendant. Mr. Stauch opens with, I might try to do the headphones from an AT&T store. The defendant replies with, how much you need, let me look at the banks. Mr. Stauch replies with, like on the plan. And the defendant says, I know, but I'm saying how much for the ones at the exchange, the ones that go over ear. Mr. Stauch replies with, don't know, I can look tomorrow. Yeah, like I used to have, but wireless. The defendant says, yes, like this, and attaches like a generic earbud image to the message. Mr. Stauch replies with, but the JBL were cheaper. And then the defendant replies with, do like 69 to 99.
Is that a fairly typical way that the defendant would quickly respond to text messages that are coming in or phone calls?
Yes.
Different from that time period that we just talked about from 2:45 to, what was it, 3:30?
Yes.
3:32 PM.
I noticed that the defendant's very responsive to friends and family.
The next entry on this timeline is at 4:15 PM. What is that?
Harley clocks out. So now we're into Monday, starting to get into the later afternoon.
So she clocks out from work.
Correct.
The next entry is at 4:19 PM. What is that?
Harley sends a text message to the defendant saying just got off, and the defendant replies back with yay.
Was that another quick response?
Within 1 minute.
The next entry is at 4:37 PM. What is that entry?
We see Harley arrive home in her white Volkswagen Jetta from surveillance taken from the neighbor's house at 6643 Mandan Drive.
The next entry is at 4:50 PM. What is that?
The defendant attempts to FaceTime Harley, but it has a 0 duration.
The next entry is at 4:51 PM. What is that entry?
Right about the time the FaceTime happens, both Harley and Laina leave the house together in the white Jetta.
The next entry is at 4:52 PM. What is that?
The defendant sends a text message to Harley saying carpet powders, 2 things, baking soda, trash bags,
Why is that significant?
cleaning products.
As it relates to cleaning products, what does the investigation show as to the likely time that Gannon was murdered?
Prior to Laina getting home from school.
On this January 27th?
That's correct.
Do you ever see, through any portion of the investigation from that point on, ever see Gannon alive on any videos, audio recordings, or anything like that?
You do not.
After the defendant sent that text message asking for the carpet powders, 2 things, baking soda, and trash bags at 4:52 PM, the next entry is at 5:07 PM. What is that?
That's Harley attempting to FaceTime the defendant, but again, it doesn't connect. It's a 0 duration.
The next entry is at 5:08 PM. What is that?
It's the defendant's phone having a 10-second FaceTime with Harley's phone.
The next entry is at 5:14 PM. What is that?
This is the Dollar Tree located at 6955 Mesa Ridge Parkway, which is in close proximity to the Mandan residence. It's a
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
it's a receipt where Harley purchased the items requested along with some candy for Laina.
The next entry is at 5:19 PM. What is that?
519, Harley's attempting to FaceTime the defendant, but it doesn't connect.
The next is at 5:20 PM. What is that entry?
A minute later, Harley again attempts to FaceTime the defendant, but it connects for 10 seconds.
And then 5:33 PM is the next. What is that entry?
Harley and Laina return back to the Mandan residence in the white Jetta.
The next entry is at 5:34 PM. What is that?
Mr. Stauch sends a text message to the defendant saying, have kids FaceTime.
Did the defendant respond to that text message?
Not for about an hour later.
Okay. The next entries from 6:27 PM to 6:37 PM. Is this the first outgoing message from the defendant indicating that something's gone wrong with Gannon?
It is. Yes.
So tell us what is at that entry point, 6:27 PM to 6:37 PM.
So at 5:34, Al wants to FaceTime with the kids and see the kids and talk to the kids. The next message is from the defendant to Al, 6:27 PM, so almost an hour later, saying Gannon said he was going to his friend's house and I told him 6. I don't know those people. And Mr. Stauch says, send Laina. And then the defendant says, okay, hold, I'll stand out and watch her. Mr. Stauch says, if it's the ones on the end of our street, and ground him until Thursday. And the defendant says, Kay, it's pouring rain. You ask them, they may be why. Sleeting, actually.
In any of these text messages that are outgoing from the defendant's phone on both January 26th and now on January 27th, any indication that the defendant doesn't know who she's texting with?
No, no indication of that.
Any indication that the defendant is in some other altered personality?
No, it's consistent.
Any indication in any of these text messages where she's wanting to be called Maria or any other name?
No.
The next entry is at 6:38 PM. What is that?
The defendant places an outgoing call to Mr. Stauch, but it's a 0 duration call.
Next entry is at 6:40 PM to 6:49 PM. What is that?
2 minutes later, the defendant sends a message to Mr. Stauch saying, taking your truck to look for him. Mr. Stauch says, the truck is low on gas. The defendant says, Laina is running inside to see if he is here. Mr. Stauch says, okay. And he follows up with, where is he? With a few question marks. The defendant says, she just went to the door, Albert. It's sleeting. Mr. Stauch says, okay. The defendant says, not here, going to Lily's. Mr. Stauch says, what? With 3 question marks.
This text string, does that indicate, from the defendant's perspective at least, that they're out in the neighborhood looking for Gannon?
Yes.
Was there any indication that they were out looking for Gannon at that time?
They did go to one house and Laina did go up to the door.
Okay. The next entry is at 6:49 PM. What is that?
So immediately following that what message from Mr. Stauch, the defendant calls Mr. Stauch for almost 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 50-second duration.
The next entry is 6:53 PM. What is that?
Mr. Stauch sends Gannon's phone a text message saying, "Where are you?" And just like the previous message of "Hey buddy," it wasn't read until 7:40 PM that night.
1 minute later is your next entry at 6:54 PM. What is that entry?
The defendant places an outgoing call. It's 9 seconds in duration to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, but the number, it's not to 911, it's not to non-emergency, it's to the front desk. And they closed at 5 PM,
And this would be after that 5 PM closure.
almost 2 hours after, yes.
The next entry is at 6:55 PM. What is that entry?
The defendant calls 911, and it was a 2-minute, 50-second duration call.
Does this coincide with that 911 call that we listened to early on in the trial and that non-emergency call that we listened to earlier in the trial where the defendant is reporting that Gannon didn't come back from a friend's house?
These are those calls, yes.
Explain the blue line that goes up to the top there.
But with this 911 call, this is when Gannon is officially missing.
And then does that blue line extend all the way out on these timelines until his remains were found in Pensacola, Florida?
It does.
The last entry is at 6:58 PM. Is that essentially just that non-emergency call that we just discussed?
It is.
And is that the last entry on page 2 of 3 of People's Exhibit 696?
It is.
We're going to move on to People's 696, page 3 of 3. Again, to just orient us to what source of information are used to create this portion of the timeline, tell the jury what those are.
Nothing's changed from the previous one. The main sources are Mr. Stauch's cell phone download, the defendant's cell phone download, Harley's cell phone download, Gannon's cell phone download, and the FBI CAST report.
Okay. In the time frame of this particular page 2 of 3, or I'm sorry, 3 of 3 is what time frame?
It's still Monday, January 27th of 2020, but now we're looking from 7 PM until midnight.
The first entry that you have on this particular item is 6:59 PM to 7:08 PM. What is that?
Messages between the defendant and Mr. Stauch, and she says, "All of the call takers are busy. OMG, still on hold. WTF."
And then just go ahead and read for us each one of the text responses.
Mr. Stauch responds with, "Where are you?" The defendant says, "In the driveway. Harley has gone to the park. Someone's answered, hold. How tall?" Mr. Stauch says, 4'10", I think. The defendant says, "Sorry, I'm freaking out," asking me if he has tattoos, asking me does he use alcohol or drugs. 90 pounds, they need his social, I can't think. Mr. Stauch says, "I don't have it on me," and the defendant says, "Okay." During this time, Harley left in the Jetta to go search the nearby park to see if Gannon was there.
And then the next entry that you have after that is at 7:06 PM. What is that?
Harley attempted to FaceTime the defendant while that text conversation was happening with Mr. Stauch, and it didn't connect,
Did not connect.
did not connect.
The next entry is 7:08 PM to 7:16 PM. What is that?
In response to the attempted FaceTime, the defendant sends messages with Harley saying, "Any luck? On call." Harley says, "No, I couldn't remember the exact road that the park is on. Usually can just see with my eyes, but it's so dark, so I can't tell, but I'm at the school now." And then Harley responds with, "Look, OMG." And then the defendant says, "Okay, anything."
The next entry is at 7:10 PM. What is that?
This is an outgoing call from the defendant to Mr. Stauch that lasted 14 minutes and 27 seconds.
The next entry is at 7:18 PM. What is that?
This is an incoming call from the sheriff's office to the defendant that lasted 1 minute and 18 seconds.
The next entry is at 7:24 PM. What is that?
Harley returned home from searching at the school and park.
7:31 PM is the next. What is that?
The defendant makes an outgoing call to Mr. Stauch that lasted 5 minutes and 35 seconds.
The next entry is at 7:43 PM. What is that?
Mr. Stauch sends a message to the defendant saying anything, they found some kind of cigarettes in his backpack. The defendant replies with, yes, Harley found them.
The next entry is at 7:44 PM to 7:45 PM. What is that entry?
Harley's FaceTiming with Mr. Stauch.
The next entry is 7:45 PM to 7:47 PM. What is that?
So something happened during this FaceTime because the defendant sends a message to Mr. Stauch saying, why did you hang up on her? Mr. Stauch says, because I'm freaking out. The defendant says, we are too. Harley is crying. Laina is crying. I hope he isn't putting the salts in here or using the straws. I'm crying.
These messages coming from the defendant's phone, are they pushing still this narrative that Gannon has left and hasn't returned, and also furthering the idea that there's some concerns that he might be trying to experiment with drugs?
That's exactly what's happening.
The next entry is 7:50 PM to 7:51 PM. What is that?
The message from Mr. Stauch to the defendant saying, no police. Did you tell them possible drugs involved? And the defendant says, no police.
What is that a reference to? No police.
The police haven't arrived on scene yet to the Mandan residence.
Okay. The next entry is 7:50 PM to 7:53 PM. What is that?
Harley takes the Jetta and goes around the block, again, looking for Gannon.
The next entry is 7:51 PM to 7:53 PM. What is that?
This is text messages back and forth between Harley and the defendant. Harley says, ask Laina if she remembers any cars, old station wagons or old cars and colors. So this message string takes place while Harley's driving around the block. The defendant replies with, no, but don't go there by yourself. Connor's mom is on the way and she could go with you. And Harley responds with, okay.
The next entry is 7:53 PM to 8 o'clock PM. What is that?
So over these next 7 minutes, the defendant's sending messages to Mr. Stauch saying, Connor's mom on the way to start looking. Connor's mom said it's a stupid idea putting elementary at the middle school. Harley has gone to look for Jimmy. I think that's supposed to say I'm freaking out. I can't breathe. Have you let anyone know or waiting on the police?
And
Mr.
just,
Stauch, sorry.
I'm sorry, let me just break in there. When you say that you think it says I'm freaking out, what is it? Just spell it out so the record is very clear.
FRAKAIJF space O.
And when you say that you think it's should be saying freaking out, is that based on the context of the message itself?
Yes, the situation that we're in, and she uses the term freaking out quite a bit.
Okay. And then the response from Al to this is what?
I texted that lady from SC because their son is on the same bus. The defendant says, okay, your mom, his mom? Mr. Stauch says, yes. And the defendant says, just in case they ask me, you talk to both. Mr. Stauch says, who? The defendant says, like, did you tell him mom? I'm assuming it's supposed to be his mom. So I know when they ask me if he made contact with her. Mr. Stauch says, yes. Defendant says, what is she saying? He talked to her? Mr. Stauch says, no response. And the defendant says, okay, because they told me to have a list of people available that we reached out to. So I'm writing them down. They need social. Is it here? Mr. Stauch says, I lost them, remember? The defendant says, okay, are you in your hotel room? Mr. Stauch says, yes. The defendant says, babe, you aren't saying much. I'm losing my mind. They aren't here yet.
During this portion of the evening on January 27th, is the neighborhood starting to become mobilized to be out looking for Gannon on this night?
We're still early on, but yes, they start doing initial searches that night. Neighborhood canvases, flashlights, that kind of thing.
There's reference to Connor's mom being notified about something, Harley being out looking around. That's what I'm basing that question on, that this is sort of the start of that neighborhood effort to find Gannon.
Yes, it is.
Okay. The next entry is at 8 PM. What is that?
There's an outgoing call from the defendant to Mr. Stauch, and it lasted 1 minute and 24 seconds.
The next entry is at 8:05 PM. What is that?
Mr. Stauch calls the El Paso County Sheriff's Office.
Next entry, 8:06 PM to 8:08 PM. What is that?
The defendant asks Al, what did they say? Mr. Stauch replied with same BS. The defendant says, what? Did we tell you he wrote, I'm sorry for everything last night on his notebook? Just trying to make sure I told you everything.
The next entry is 8:16 PM to 8:21 PM. What is that?
About 8 minutes have passed, and Mr. Stauch responds to the defendant saying, I emailed everything. I emailed the teacher. Anything? Defendant says, no, Connor's mom is here, and everyone is going to the fields to look. Mr. Stauch says, the fields? Where are the guns? Hello? And the defendant says, yes, like to make sure no kids are at Soul hideout place they have. Mr. Stauch says, where are the guns? Answer me. The defendant says, hold, I'll go check. Green one is there. Mr. Stauch says, black. Defendant says, big one in my closet.
Then the next entry is from 8:22 PM to 8:24 PM. What is that?
Just a continuation on about where the guns are.
Okay, so tell us who is sending each message.
Defendant says, hold, looking because I put it back in your crate after later stayed. I didn't check the inside, but it seemed normal. It was in there. Mr. Stauch says, okay. Defendant says, I don't see your pouch. Mr. Stauch says, really? You serious? No one knew they were in there. Defendant says, looked under everything. Mr. Stauch says, yours in there? Defendant says, it fell, all accounted for.
So spell that noise that you just made, just so the record is good.
PSHHHH.
Okay. The next message, who is it from? And just continue on with that conversation.
It's from Mr. Stauch saying, okay. Then the defendant says, it's got to be some older middle schooler. Mr. Stauch says, yes. Then the defendant says, I was panicking for a second about gun, but that makes me feel better. So we just need to know where he is hanging out at.
That conversation, does that indicate that the defendant has accounted for all of the guns that would be in the Stauch residence?
It does.
And does that include the gun that was ultimately determined to have been used against Gannon?
It does.
The next entry is 8:25 PM. What is that?
It's an outgoing call from the defendant to Mr. Stauch that lasted 11 minutes and 47 seconds.
The next entry is at 8:33 PM. What is that?
During this phone call, the defendant texts Harley saying, anything yet? And Harley says no.
The next entry is at 8:37 PM. What is that?
It's a FaceTime, 18-second FaceTime session between Harley to the defendant.
And then still at 8:37 PM. What is that?
It's an outgoing call from the defendant to Mr. Stauch that lasted 19 minutes and 43 seconds.
The next entry is at 8:43 PM. What is that?
While they were on the phone, the defendant texts Harley saying anything, still waiting. Harley replies with no.
And when you said while they were on the phone, do you mean the defendant and Mr. Stauch?
Correct, yes.
Okay. The next entry is at 9:00 PM. What is that?
It's an outgoing call from Mr. Stauch to the defendant that lasted 15 minutes and 57 seconds.
The next entry is at 9:18 PM. What is that?
It's another outbound call from Mr. Stauch to the defendant that lasted 2 minutes and 7 seconds.
And then the next entry is at 9:23 PM. What is that?
It's an inbound call from someone with the same 843 South Carolina area code to the defendant that lasted just over 4 minutes.
And then are some of the numbers X'd out on this particular entry?
They are just for privacy.
Okay. But the full number would be contained in the Celebrite report for the defendant's phone?
That's correct.
Okay. Any idea based on your investigation who that number belonged to?
We figured out who it was, but I can't recall at this time.
Okay. 843 area code, is that Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area?
Yes.
The next entry is at 9:26 PM. What is that?
It's an outgoing call from Mr. Stauch to the defendant that had a 0 duration.
9:26 PM again. What is that?
So he recalled in that same minute, and this time it connected for 4 minutes and 36 seconds with the defendant.
And then 9:36 PM. What is that?
10 minutes later, another outbound call from Mr. Stauch to the defendant that lasted 17 seconds.
And then 9:39 PM. What is that?
Mr. Stauch called the defendant that lasted 1 minute and 23 seconds.
And then 9:45 PM. What is that?
Outgoing call from Mr. Stauch to the El Paso County Sheriff.
9:46 PM. What is that?
outbound call from Mr. Stout to the defendant that lasted 7 minutes and 9 seconds.
And then we have what appears to be a text exchange again, is that right?
Correct, from Mr. Stout to the defendant. It's 1 minute where Mr. Stout says, Landon said, track his switch through Gmail. The defendant says, tell me how to do that because we looked it up and it said no GPS, so how? Mr. Stout says, any police? No clue. And the defendant says, okay, I'll Google it.
And was there a particular search that we saw earlier on a particular phone about tracking a switch?
There was.
What? Just remind us what that one was.
Well, there was a search from Gannon's phone earlier that day asking, can my parents find my phone, period, if it's off? But there was also a search in the defendant's phone asking that question, can track my Nintendo Switch?
As it relates to that search on Gannon's phone about can my phone be found if it's turned off, was that search conducted before Gannon was reported missing by the defendant?
It was.
At 9:57 p.m., what is that?
An outbound call from Mr. Stout to the defendant for 6 minutes and 24 seconds.
And then 10:03 p.m., what is that?
It's an outbound call from Gannon's phone to Landon that lasted 4 minutes and 28 seconds.
Based on the indications that you testified to earlier, is Gannon alive at 10:03 p.m. on January 27th?
No.
And yet a phone call is originating from Gannon's phone to Landon's phone, which is Gannon's mother. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do we know who was using Gannon's phone at that particular time?
It was the defendant.
10:08 p.m., what is that entry?
The defendant tells Al essentially how that phone call went with Landon. The defendant says, she didn't yell, she just cried. Cops are here. I did have to tell her the whole deal. I didn't withhold anything because the cop was right here.
And did Al respond?
He responded with okay.
And then at 10:09 p.m., what is that?
The El Paso County Sheriff deputies arrive with the body-worn camera and the audio and the pictures in exhibits 210, 211, 310 through 315.
And is that also corroborated by the testimony that we heard from Deputy Youngkin early on in the trial?
It was, yes.
And saw his body-worn camera footage?
Yes.
The next entry is at 10:35 p.m. to 10:43 p.m. What is that?
It's a text message. Mr. Stout sends a message to the defendant saying anything with some question marks. The defendant says, they are calling you. Mr. Stout just leaves a series of question marks. The defendant says, they were asking me questions about dental and the same things I kept telling them, and it's frustrating. Where does he go to the dentist? And Mr. Stout responds, fountain. No, no, no.
The next
Defendant replies
sorry, go
with,
ahead.
the defendant replies with, I know, but I told them they're overwhelming me with stuff that I don't know or isn't relevant. Mr. Stout responds with, but dental records are for ID, OMG. And the defendant says, I'm overwhelmed because I'm mad at how long they took.
Are dental records in fact used to identify potentially deceased individuals?
They can, yes.
10:44 p.m., what is the next entry there?
It's immediately following that last message. The defendant places an outgoing call to Mr. Stout that lasted 33 seconds.
The next entry is at 10:46 p.m. What is that?
Another outbound call from Gannon's phone to Landon's phone that lasted 12 minutes and 6 seconds.
Do we know who was making that call using Gannon's phone?
It was the defendant.
The next entry is at 10:53 p.m. What is that?
It's a picture number 511 taken with Gannon's phone. It's of a cigar.
And did we hear testimony from Harley Hunt about finding some Swisher Sweet cigars in Gannon's backpack?
Yes, at the request of the defendant to search Gannon's backpack.
The next entry is at 11:01 p.m. to 11:09 p.m. What is that?
A message from Mr. Stout to the defendant saying nothing else, still talking to police. And the defendant replies with, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. Mr. Stout says, tell the police. And the defendant says, they had 7 people in here asking me irrelevant stuff when I could be going through the rest of the 462 comments. Mr. Stout replies with, you okay? And the defendant says, no, like I do everything I can, but none of it matters. And now I am asked why he was outside or drill me about other friends when I don't have the first number to one of them. I've walked this house for 5 hours. I haven't eaten. My chest hurts, but it's not about me.
What's that reference to the 462 comments? Is that a reference to social media?
Yes, she's on Facebook a lot during these last couple hours.
Okay. The next entry is at 11:09 p.m. What is that?
An outgoing call from Mr. Stout to the defendant that lasted 11 minutes and 8 seconds.
The next entry is at 11:29 p.m. What is that?
The defendant calls her mom. It lasted 1 minute and 12 seconds.
The next entry is at 11:39 p.m. What is that?
The deputies clear, meaning they leave the Mandan residence, and Gannon's entered as missing at 11:49 p.m.
The next entry is at 11:51 p.m. What is that?
That's a message from Harley to the defendant saying, "Do you need me to get you anything?" And the defendant replies, "No, I may need to go to the store."
And then the final entry, 11:54 p.m. to 11:57 p.m. What is that?
Mr. Stauch asks the defendant, "You okay?" And the defendant says, "All these photos are starting to run together. My eyes and head hurt. Someone is bringing me a Coke. My head is about to bust."
And when we're looking at this totality of this particular timeline, the Gannon is missing line extends for the entirety of this portion. Is that right?
It does.
Was there any indication during this period of time that the defendant went out and was looking for Gannon in the neighborhood or in the vicinity of the 6627 Mandan Drive?
Other than the initial drive with Laina when it was raining out, no, it indicates that she was inside the house.
Was she on social media more than she was outside looking?
Absolutely, yes.
So we're going to go to the next exhibit, which is 697. It's going to be page 1 of 4. Again, just so that we are referencing the sources of information for this portion of the timelines, tell us what we're looking at.
Nothing's changed. It's still the same main sources. Mr. Stauch's phone download, the defendant's phone download, Harley's phone download, Gannon's phone download, and the FBI CAS report.
And then the blue line, does it extend? Gannon is missing for the entirety of this particular timeline.
Gannon's still missing.
What is the time span for page 1 of 4 of People's Exhibit 697?
So now we're at Tuesday, and page 1 looks from midnight to right about 7 a.m., 6:59 a.m.
Okay.
There's an outgoing call at 12:09 a.m. from the defendant's phone to Mr. Stauch's phone, but it goes to voicemail.
The next entry is at 12:40 a.m. What is that?
The defendant calls Mr. Stauch, and they connects for 8 minutes and 58 seconds.
And then the next entry is from 1:04 a.m. to 1:38 a.m. What is that?
Series of messages between the defendant and Mr. Stauch. It starts with the defendant saying, "Please help me. Please talk to me." Mr. Stauch says, "What's wrong?" The defendant says, "I can't sit on this house, Laina on the bike." Mr. Stauch says, "Did she see him while she was riding?" The defendant says, "That Gannon, and he has the hood on. He was doing that yesterday. The lady has a better image, but it's too big to load. You can see it's a switch case." Mr. Stauch replies with, "What did you say he Googled?" The defendant says, "Hold, I'll send," and sends a screenshot of that Google search from Gannon's phone earlier saying, "Can my parent find my cell phone, period, if it's off?" And the defendant says, "Think he would trying to go to their house, the FV family. Sounds crazy, but he was looking, you saw their address, if that's near here."
The USO, spell that just so the record's clear.
USO, I would expect the phrase to be he was looking up their address. Mr. Stauch says, "Don't know anything else being said on that FB page," which stands for Facebook, so that Facebook page. The defendant says, "No, just people saying to start again in the morning after sunrise. No, she came back and he was leaving." Mr. Stauch replies with, "Huh?" The defendant says, "I don't know. I was answering something. People brought us food," and Mr. Stauch says, "K."
This reference, the text message that you read from the defendant to Mr. Stauch that says, that Gannon and he has the hood on, that sort of thing. Is this based off of tips that are coming in that Gannon might have been seen at different places around the community?
Yeah, there's some neighborhood Facebook pages and messages over Facebook Messenger with still pictures from neighborhood cameras in the area. And one was a boy wearing a blue hoodie.
Were those tips ran down by investigators?
They were.
Were any of them found to be Gannon himself, or were they not him?
All of them were confirmed to not be Gannon.
From 1:49 a.m. to 2:06 a.m., what is that?
The defendant messages Mr. Stauch saying the pains are getting worse, not being insensitive at all, just letting you know, please talk, are you ION, I-O-N, and corrects it with up. No one has reached out to me but Lorson Ranch. I always give it my all and try to do my best at everything I do. Mr. Stauch doesn't respond.
In this message, the defendant refers to herself as I, is that correct?
Yes, I.
And then again, like we asked just a little bit ago, or like I asked just a little bit ago, any references to calling herself Maria or Jasmine or Taylor or anything like that?
No.
At 2:46 a.m., what is that entry?
The defendant messages their friend or her friend, Dietrich Moss, saying Gannon has been missing since he was outside playing yesterday. And Dietrich Moss does not respond.
Does this indicate that the defendant is still pushing the idea that Gannon has left and not returned to the home?
That's correct.
From 2:46 a.m. to 3:00 a.m., what is that?
The message from the defendant to Mr. Stauch saying no one is ever supportive to step parents, like they mean nothing when I did beyond my part. Mr. Stauch replies with, OMG, what are you talking about? Gannon is missing and you are worried about what people are saying to you? The defendant replies with, I have no one to talk to. What? No one said anything to me. Mr. Stauch replies with, dozens of people were out looking and people brought you food. The defendant responds with, I was telling you how I felt and that all I has here was the Lorson Ranch people. Mr. Stauch replies with, Gannon has no one right now. That's who has no one to talk to. And the defendant replies with, meaning I had other friends here. You totally read it wrong. There was no one putting myself over this. You are my husband. I was saying my feelings. You completely took it wrong. I never discredited anything. You were saying people were talking to you. Forget I even mentioned having chest pains. I was taking away anything. I wasn't taking away anything. I was saying they were worse, and I wish I had someone to help. Regardless, I'm human, a person too who has pain and worried. What do you mean he has no one? He is talking with his friends, maybe not good friends. He is coming home once he sees the news. All I'm saying is talk to me, like you haven't said anything about yourself. Mr. Stauch replies with, he's in a car, long gone. The defendant says, and how we can help each other. Mr. Stauch says, there's no way he got to that gas station by 4 p.m. on foot.
Let me break in just there real quickly. Is this another reference to chasing down a tip that Gannon was at a gas station in the area?
Yes, there was some information that someone may have seen Gannon at a come and go gas station, but we confirmed it was not Gannon.
Was not Gannon.
Was not Gannon.
The next response from the defendant is what?
Long gone, like with friends, right? I'm just so lost as to what to say, and it's all so sad. I have hurt, but you want talk to me about yours. So that's all I'm saying is to talk to me, help each other out. I can't sleep. I asked the neighborhood to pray for you on your flight and help you. I'm just so devastated. I run time the door at every sound. So I can't imagine you. I'm just hurting for you and me too, but I just don't want what to say or do or where to search next. I've been in his life since he was 5 and helped take care of him in most of his adolescent years. I don't understand. I think he may be peer pressured, and I don't know about the salt stuff. And like I keep imagining salts everywhere, and my brain won't stop thinking if he has food. We haven't eaten yet because we were supposed to at 6. Is there anywhere I could go? I have to do something. Please talk to me and tell me.
In any of these long text messages, are there any pleas for mental health help from the defendant?
No.
The next portion of the timeline is 3:05 a.m. through 4:42 a.m. This entry looks different than some of the others because there's more times listed. Why is that?
It's kind of broken out. Instead of making this timeline even longer, I just kind of isolated the times that these conversations took place at these timestamps.
Okay. And so let's have you read through these text messages, starting with the defendant's text message.
The defendant says to Mr. Stauch, "Babe, please, what do you mean long gone? Now I'm freaking out. I want to talk to you. I need to be there for you. I'm glad you have lots of people there for you, but we need each other. I need to be there for you most. Are you awake? What time do you leave? I feel so sick. I'm going to help the people search." I misread that. "I feel so sick. I'm going to help the search people. Babe, you said your plane was early. I can't sleep. Babe, are you okay? You are supposed to be on the plane, and you have said nothing in hours. Babe, you have to be up if your flight is at 6. Where are you?" And Mr. Stauch doesn't respond.
The next entry that you have on the timeline is at 4:56 a.m. to 4:59 a.m. What is that?
It's a message from the 843 area code number to the defendant saying, "Any new information?" And the defendant replies with, "No, I keep checking the door every few minutes. Last we heard, he was at a store getting food."
The next entry is at 4:59 a.m. What is that?
A message from the defendant to Mr. Stauch saying, "I'm sorry that you feel the need to ignore me checking in, especially my husband getting on a flight with the tragedies that happened with the helicopter this week. I know you are worried, but it doesn't mean to ignore me and not be kind."
What's the reference to the helicopter thing?
Kobe Bryant's helicopter crashed and he died in it.
5:15 a.m. is the next entry. What is that?
It's a local area code number 719. Message to the defendant saying someone posted he wasn't at school either. And the defendant responded with, "He had to go to the doctor for his stomach. Honestly, I don't keep up with friends. Albert lets them walk around the neighborhood, but he was here in the afternoon."
Based on context, who is the he that's referenced in that text message?
Gannon.
Was there any indication that Gannon went to the doctor because of his stomach being hurting on January 27th?
No.
The next entry is at 5:27 a.m. What is that?
The message from the defendant to a person with a 631 area code number, and she says, "Albert is hurting and taking it out on me."
The next entry is at 5:41 a.m. to 5:57 a.m. What is that?
From 541 to 557, Gannon's phone is now messaging Landon. And the first message says, "Left every toy," with a photograph taken with Gannon's phone of Gannon's room. Picture number 514.
And for context purposes, again, was there any indication that Gannon was using this phone on this particular date and time?
No.
Was there any indication that Gannon was even alive at this particular day and time?
No.
6:18 a.m. is the next entry. And before you get to that, Judge, checking on time, how do you want me to go to about 10 till roughly? Or,
We're at about 10 till.
oh, I'm sorry, you want me to go to noon maybe?
Well, you just need to find a good break point.
Okay.
If you could find that within about the next 5 minutes or so.
Will do. The next entry is at 6:18 a.m. What is that entry?
It's from a person with a local 719 area code. A message to the defendant saying, "Is there an Amber Alert out yet? Is Al home?" Someone was saying he was in Oklahoma. The defendant responded with, "Yes, Oklahoma, and you can't do an Amber Alert unless you know that someone took them and have to have that person name and tags."
And we actually skipped ahead one. There's also another entry at 6:18 a.m. with the pickup truck. Is that right?
And that's what we saw earlier today with the pickup truck moving forward a little bit on the curb.
That's one of those videos that we watched in People's Exhibit 214.
That's correct.
The next entry is at 6:21 a.m. What is that?
621, the defendant messages Harley saying, "Don't answer the door for anyone. I'm going to see if people are out looking." And Harley doesn't respond.
The next entry, we have a map indicator here as well. This is above the entries below the timeline. Why is it above that like that?
If there's location data for a time period, it is represented above the timeline to show where entities are during a certain time period.
And we just earlier this morning had watched exhibits 215, 216, 217, and 218, showing the defendant's Volkswagen Tiguan leaving 6627 in the morning and then coming back. Is that what this next period, 6:22 a.m. to 6:32 a.m. is?
Yes, this is that 10-minute period where the Tiguan and the defendant, with the defendant's phone, went to Bradley Road and back.
Okay. And let's go ahead and stop there. We'll pick back up at the 6:34 a.m. Time frame on People's Exhibit 697, page 104.
Or you wanna take a break?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will take our lunch recess. If I can have everyone back in the jury room at, say, 1:20, we should be able to start on time at that point. Again, don't discuss case among yourselves. Don't discuss case with anyone else. Don't do your own research about any aspect of the case. And we'll see you back at 1:20. All rise for the jury, please.
Oh. We see some skin. Cousin It's taking a peek out. Oh, nope. Down we go. She is so weird. Jeez.
Thank you. May all be seated.
Right, guys?
Record should reflect the jury has left the courtroom.
We got Lori
and
Vallow and Letecia
did we ever find out what
Stauch.
the issue was on that video? All right, I do want to put something out there for people because I know that there is some interest on this case or about this case on WebEx.
Dudley Moore,
If
the
we lose
drunk
video of
rich
the
guy
courtroom feed,
with Liza Minnelli.
during any portion of the trial, we will not restart that until we reach a breaking point. The reason for that is that the default setting on the camera, regardless of how many times we've tried to adjust it, the default setting pans out. So if you see, if you tune in before we actually start the session, you will see a wide view of the courtroom, which includes the jury box with no one sitting there. However, if the equipment goes down during trial and the jury is there and we restart it, there is a potential of capturing juror faces. I've issued an order for anyone who is viewing or rebroadcasting any portion of this video that they may not capture or they are prohibited from capturing jurors' faces at any point in time. So to avoid that problem during trial, if our equipment goes down and it appears we had some sort of issue, but I don't know what it was, we will not restart it until we reach the next break. You'll still have the audio, but not the video. And it's just, as I understand it, it's the video of the courtroom that gets lost, not the video of the witness stand. Is that right? Okay. So that's the process. I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating from my point of view too.
He was
but
awesome.
It is what it is. Mr. Clark, you can go ahead and step down. Is there anything else that we need to take up at this point in time? Prosecution?
Nothing of really any context other than we can probably turn the TVs off for now. Yeah.
Defense? Okay. All right. Court will be in recess. Thank you.
All righty. Let's see here. So I have to run to the dentist, and I will see what time it is when I get back as to whether or not I'm going to stream this afternoon. So thanks for hanging out with me, guys. It was interesting as always. She doesn't come out from her hair very bloody often, unless it's her guys that are actually on the stand. We've seen her get a little bit even feisty. You got to see a different side of her, that's for sure. So, yeah, like James just said, peace out, everyone. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.